Hello and welcome to Chinese Novel Audiobook. Explore our playlist for more captivating novels, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new audiobook. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 81 Treasure Hidden in the Mecha. Stand firmly on the ground. Su Wu glanced at the power of the miniature mecha. The power of nearly 100% before leaving the ground was already reduced by a slight drop at this time. Obviously, the low-altitude jump just now consumed a lot of electricity. Depending on this situation, low-altitude auxiliary thrusters cannot be used as conventional means. After all, the miniature mecha is a ground combat unit. From the perspective of appearance design, it is not suitable to regard low-altitude flight as the main movement method. Instead, it should be used as a special means of offensive. Too intense power consumption is the best comment on this judgment. I restrained my thoughts of continuing to jump in the wilderness. Only then did Su Wu notice that the temperature in the cockpit seemed to be no different from that inside the shelter. This high degree of consistency. He even subconsciously ignored the changes in the environment before, and still thought he was still in the shelter. It's just remotely operating through the screen in front of the console. I looked at the real-time temperature outside. 72.3 degrees. It was thought that at this time he was separated from the outside by a metal armor that was perhaps less than 2 centimeters thick. Su Wu felt an indescribable strange feeling in his heart for a moment. That feeling is like in peacetime, some people who traveled in the desert who were deliberately traveling, stayed in an air-conditioned car and tasted it with ice coke. Through the window, I admire the vast sea of sand that seemed to be shining against the scorching sun. Because of the huge contrast between the two environments at close range, a different kind of novelty and stimulation are created. Sure enough, it's a bit different from staying in a shelter to command remotely. Su Wu sighed a little. Of course, he also knew that the idea was basically because the sense of security brought to him by the micro mecha was too sufficient. If he was driving here at this time and faced a situation where he might break down at any time and his life was threatened, it would definitely be a different feeling. At least, there will definitely be such a strong leisure as it is now. The eyes continue to browse on the attachment icon on the right side of the screen. Su Wu next chose to release the two reconnaissance drones that were built with the mecha. The two fists are the size of a spherical mechanical device, which pops up from the back of the micro mecha. Within a few seconds, he rushed to a height of more than 100 meters. And at the same time, a small three-dimensional map also popped up in front of Su Wu. Those were two reconnaissance drones, projected in real-time overlooking the map after collecting data in the air. Even some of the underground intelligence. This reconnaissance drone has a strong professional ability. Su Wu took a closer look at the three-dimensional map. On the map, some of the situations located underground were also displayed. Including whether there are holes, whether there are valuable resources, whether the main components are soil or rock, etc. The deepest part even touched about 15 meters underground. I studied the three-dimensional map for a while. Su Wu focused his attention on the two reconnaissance drones themselves floating in the air. It is completely different from the mainstream drones in the world. These two reconnaissance drones have no rotor. Flying and hovering all rely on the internal anti-gravity engine. The fastest flight speed is close to the speed of sound. In terms of technological content, it seems to be more advanced than the micro mecha itself. In fact, Su Wu discovered that they actually had independent electromagnetic shields and information about the two reconnaissance drones. However, due to its small size, the power it can carry is limited. Their electromagnetic shields are all passively triggered. And at most, it can only block the impact of one sniper bullet. If the accumulation exceeds this limit, you must return to the mecha for charging before you can continue to use it. We have to find an opportunity to study the engines of these two reconnaissance drones in the future. If you can imitate it, you will make a lot of money. Su Wu secretly remembered this in his heart. Anti-gravity engine. This thing sounds very sci-fi. Among the fantasies of many literary works, it is also a symbol of interstellar civilization. No mistakes, one song, one content, 1 in 6, one book, one bar, one reading. If it can be successfully copied successfully, let alone Zhonghe City, he can easily collect resources even in any place on the surface of the entire planet. And here. Suwu no longer felt heartbroken about the huge survival points consumed by upgrading the miniature mecha. Just these mecha accessories that have been tested. With so many technological crystals that transcend the times, they have already made a comeback. If you add the later parts that have not been tested yet, Suwu even began to consider whether it is the most correct way to use it, like making a micro mecha, just like concentrating a large number of survival points and using them at one time. Below, it's time to test weapons and practical capabilities. Suwu compared the three-dimensional map. I found that where I am now, the place where the engineering robots and special transport vehicles discovered the collapsed signal base station. Now, at the same time, the same sky is dark. He even arrived at the scene in person instead of passing through the screen. Facing the rugged rocks and strange hills nearby, Suwu's mentality is completely different. Not only was he not afraid, but he was eager to try and wanted to hit him. I randomly found a tall rock pillar that stood crookedly. Suwu raised the electromagnetic sniper rifle in the miniature mecha's hand and pointed it at it. The shooting center located in the middle of the screen locks the middle of the rock column in 0.2 seconds. Here Suwu noticed a detail. The aiming of the electromagnetic sniper rifle actually went through 2 stages in total. The first stage was after the idea of aiming at the rock pillar appeared in his mind. The micro-mech responded to his wish and pointed the muzzle at the approximate area where the rock pillar was located. The second stage is to fine-tune the tactical computer, fine-tune the muzzle that was originally just roughly facing the rock column to accurately point to the weakest place. And it is particularly worth mentioning that before the tactical computer fine-tuned locking, Suwu himself did not even realize that it was the weakest part of the rock pillar. He just had a vague idea of aiming at the rock pillar and destroying it. The meaning behind this phenomenon represents that tactical computers have strong data analysis capabilities and certain independent decision-making capabilities. In terms of true comprehensive performance, it is likely that it is still on the primary artificial intelligence derived from the shelter based on the upgraded laptop. It is also manifested externally. It is Suwu's future battle, where you can casually point the gun at the enemy. Then the remaining analysis of enemy weaknesses and aiming can be left to the tactical computer to perform automatically. Chapter 82 Awe and Rest. Confirm that the lock is completed, Suwu starts shooting. A special pure metal projectile ejected from the muzzle of the electromagnetic sniper rifle. At a speed far beyond the speed of sound, it blasted straight towards the locked rock pillar in the distance. The next moment, the middle part of the rock column was exploded on the spot, forming a mass of dust composed of rock powder. Without the support at the bottom, the upper half of the rock column, which is more than 20 meters high, then fell to the ground under the influence of gravity, raising a larger area of smoke and dust. Watch the effect of the electromagnetic sniper rifle. Suwu raised his eyebrows slightly. He found himself seemingly choosing an inappropriate goal. Because the hit rock column is too weak. After smashing the electromagnetic sniper rifle, the bullets of the electromagnetic sniper rifle are still flying backwards according to their original trajectory. So Suwu couldn't estimate how much damage this shooting caused. And just when Suwu was planning to find another target test. From the corner of his eyes, he suddenly noticed that there seemed to be some more changes on the three-dimensional map projected by the reconnaissance drone. He enlarged the map and found 2 reconnaissance drones at high altitude. Captured all the trajectories of the electromagnetic sniper rifle attack just now. The final landing point of the metal projectile was also marked on the map, on a hill 1.2 kilometers away. It's surprisingly useful. There is no need to estimate or test again now. Any data Suwu wants can be found in the intelligence data sent back by the reconnaissance drone. The level of detail is comparable to the results of testing in a laboratory with professional equipment. It can be said that the fist-sized body of the reconnaissance drone seems inconspicuous. In fact, it can bring surprises to Suwu again and again. He truly experienced what the ultra-high efficiency and convenience of high technology is. Hanging the electromagnetic sniper rifle behind the mecha, Suwu pulled out the melee weapons of the miniature mecha. A 2.5-meter-long crimson light blade was excited from the handle of the knife held by the mecha. Like the name, the blade of the light blade thermal energy cutting knife is not made of traditional metal. Instead, it is composed of a special ductile material. It's not sharp in itself. usually curled up inside the excitation device of the knife handle and does not occupy space. But once you enter the state of combat, you are infused with sufficient energy. It will eject and form a light blade similar to a laser. The main method of killing is to condense the ultra-high heat energy in it. Su Wu waved the unfolded light blade thermal energy cutting knife and slashed the ground casually. The crimson light blade, like cutting into tofu, easily left a clear mark on the ground. This weapon will probably not be difficult to cut steel. Feeling the smooth operation during cutting, Su Wu has a basic judgment on the effect of the light blade in his hand. And it is precisely because of such a powerful lethality that the light blade thermal cutting knife is equipped with a mecha weapon of the same level as the electromagnetic sniper rifle. There are also air defense laser launchers and quad missile launchers. Su Wu's eyes fell on the screen, representing the two icons of the mecha sub-weapon. Air defense lasers are not very powerful. It mainly targets small aerial drones, incoming rockets, etc. Quad missile launchers are another extreme. According to the instructions in the database, the two launchers have a total of 8 missiles, and the destructive power of each missile is equivalent to a tactical nuclear weapon of 1,000 tons. It's extremely scary. This thing is less than one piece, and you can't test it casually. Su Wu was a little regretful. Not only that, he was even considering whether to unload the missiles in one of the 4 mounted missile launchers and save them. Then replace it with a rocket that can be produced by itself. In this way, in conventional combat, the missile launcher of the micro mecha will not become a complete decoration. Familiar with all the weapons, Su Wu opened the map of Zhonghe City and his eyes fell on a key marked place at the edge of the city. There was the mastermind behind the scenes who once hired mercenaries to invade Su Wu's refuge for the hydroponic farm. Now we need to test the performance of the mecha. Just can practice it with it. Half an hour later, Su Wu manipulated the miniature mecha and walked out of the shelter that had turned into ruins. Around its body, occasionally a subtle blue arc light flashed in the void and then quietly disappeared without a trace. That is the aftermath left after the electromagnetic shield is excited. The revenge plan went smoothly at the beginning. From driving a miniature mecha, using a light blade thermal cutting knife, violently breaking the metal door of the shelter. Then rush in and fight to the core area of the shelter without any obstacles. There was basically no resistance. No mistakes, 1 song, 1 content, 1 in 6, 1 book, 1 bar, 1 reading. The only thing I didn't expect. It is this refuge with less than 10 people in actual numbers, and there are even powerful bombs installed inside. Seeing that he was defeated, the owner of the shelter resolutely detonated the bomb and tried to die with Su Wu. Of course, the result was no surprise. All the people on the shelter were destroyed, and Su Wu was unscathed. To resist the impact of the explosion, the electromagnetic shield evacuated 40% of the power reserves of the micro mecha at once. This time, not only did I test the weapon, but I also knew the defense limit of the micro mech. Although he became the final winner, Su Wu's mood was still not very good. It is so difficult to resist the explosion, so you can face the more unpredictable natural disasters in the future. It's hard to say what the result is. After all, Su Wu spared no expense to make the original intention of manufacturing the micro mecha. It is to fight against disasters and give Su Wu a glimmer of hope in desperate situations. Instead of relying solely on the weapons of mechas to show off among humans. In the end of the world, the entire human civilization is just a poor person who struggles to survive. After all, people should have some awe. Standing at the collapsed shelter exit, Su Wu turned around and stood for a long time. After obtaining the miniature mecha, the uncontrollable expansionary mentality gradually calmed down. In essence, the micro mecha is just a tool for survival. Want to live better in the end of the world and survive longer. Relying on force alone is not enough. We still need to return to the main line of building refuges. With the micro mecha, at least the most basic life safety is no longer to worry about. Even if the radiation disaster is not long after, it will explode directly on the shelter. You can also drive the miniature mecha and start over again after finding a safe place. And solve the worries. Next, it's time to invest all the remaining resources into the expansion shelter. Chapter 83 Expensive Cost of Paint. In an invisible state, Su Wu quietly returned to his sanctuary. Take the micro-mech to the control center and connect it to the shelter's wireless charging network to charge slowly. Su-woo jumped out of the cockpit and sat down in front of the console. Returning to this familiar environment again, Su Wusheng felt a little like the next day. That kind of taste is like I just came back from a long-distance trip and saw the decorations at home. After calming down slightly, he began to check the status of the refuge. Thanks to the help of construction machinery supported by many large shelters. The special transport trucks that were originally responsible for unloading goods, as well as the excavator that was responsible for compacting and packing scrap metal, etc., were all liberated. You can return to the scavenging fleet and engineering team to continue your original work. However, at this time, it was less than 24 hours before the possible radiation storm arrived. Continuing to go out is likely to face unpredictable risks. In addition, Su-woo has now obtained a large amount of resources by selling radiation detectors. I don't think about the little income from scavenging in the city for the time being. He simply disbanded the scavenging convoy directly. Remove all the covers and weapons temporarily installed on the special transport vehicle. Let it also join the sequence of digging underground space. As for the surface, there was the authority of the battle not long ago. There is no need to retain too much military power. 2 ore-type modified armored vehicles were left to patrol, and several armed construction robots were dispatched to maintain order and receive supplies. This is enough. Then production. After completing the production of the miniature mecha, the next production project that Su-woo chose was to produce a series of experimental related equipment for convenient use to modulate radiation-proof coatings. These experimental equipment are complex in technology, require a wide variety of raw materials, and are also quite expensive. 2 days ago, Su-woo could not make it even if he had CNC machine tools and 3D printers in hand. But now, after more than 20 hours of continuous transportation of materials in other large shelters, it has arrived. These are no longer problems. At this stage, or in the next few days, the material reserves in his shelter. They will be in a relatively abundant stage and can be squandered at will. It will take about 12 hours to complete all the relevant equipment. Plus installation and debugging time. After about 14 hours, you can start to make radiation-proof coatings. It's still time. Su-woo calculated silently. I found that although the itinerary was full, as long as nothing unexpected happened, I should be able to complete it before the radiation storm came. And it is mentioned to modulation coatings. He suddenly remembered that one of the main materials for making radiation-proof coatings, the phosphor, was still placed in the official shelter warehouse and was not taken out. However, this is just a small episode. Send 2 construction robots to drive large trucks and just go over to pick up the goods. With artificial intelligence taking care of it, Su-woo doesn't need to spend any effort. All things you need to pay attention to have been processed. Su-woo breathed out, pressed his somewhat tired forehead, and prepared to go back to the bedroom to rest for a while. While there is still time, have a good sleep. Wait until you wake up tomorrow. If you are not lucky, you will probably have to go through another sleepless night. July 16th. After Su-woo had enough sleep and just woke up. Senior elites in other shelters in Zhonghe City. Still busy. Because disaster may come as early as tonight. They used the supplies they used to purchase Su-woo radiation detectors, and the proportion of valuables began to rise significantly. In order to complete the transaction as soon as possible with less capacity. After all, buying a radiation detector is only one of the first steps. It will take a certain amount of time to follow up distribution, train workers to operate, etc. After the training is completed, workers are sent to the ground. There will be a lot of new things waiting for them to solve. Threats on the ground. There is far more than the invisible radiation that may appear in the future. High temperatures are also a problem that is not so easy to overcome. And this question is right in front of you and cannot be treated perfunctorily like radiation. Once the cooling measures provided are not effective enough, workers who stay on the ground can show signs of dehydration and heat stroke in minutes. Su-woo did not have any worries in this regard. No mistakes, 1 song, 1 content, 1 in 6, 1 book, 1 bar, 1 reading. On the one hand, all the labor available in his hands is robots and smart devices. On the other hand, he only took over the testing area outside his sanctuary. The pressure is very small. The reason why he is only responsible for so few places is not that he looks down on the contribution value of the monitoring task reward. Instead, the emergence of radiation is generally highly likely to be accompanied by strong or weak signal interference. If you lose contact with the equipment on the ground at that time, it's okay to say that those shelters that rely mainly on artificiality are so fun. Even if I want to rescue me, I can't find anyone to help. After eating, you can already make breakfast for lunch. Su-woo came to the control center. At first glance, I saw that the vehicles that appeared near the farmyard ruins during the surveillance were half as few as yesterday. Most of the engineering vehicles that came to help had basically left at this time. They need to establish various temporary residential stations for their own shelters and in the monitoring areas on the ground. Sit down in front of the console. After checking the recent material delivery list, Su-woo knew this phenomenon. There are fewer vehicles on the ground, but the total value of the materials transported has increased a lot. If nothing unexpected happens, before 5 p.m. Not to mention today, even the supplies used to purchase radiation detectors in the next 2 days can be almost all given away. This is also a good thing for Su-woo. With the same value, valuables occupy much smaller space than scrap metal. There is no need to specialize in mining new warehouse storage. Just using the warehouses attached to the manufacturing center and the 4-story underground recycling center is enough to fully accommodate them. 3 p.m. The manufacturing center will complete all relevant equipment from the chemical laboratory. The 2 engineering robots joined forces to complete the final assembly and commissioning of these equipment next to the 4-story underground recycling center, which was originally intended to repair large vehicles and mechanical equipment. And just waited until the debugging was completed. Several construction robots that had been staying next to them immediately began to put the raw materials into them for production. More than 20 minutes later, Su-woo got the first barrel of about 10 liters of radiation-proof coating. Such a little. Not considering the cost of building a chemical lab. Just making paints is worth 200,000 yuan. Looking at the light green, anti-radiation coating in a paste. Su-woo compared the raw material consumption list, and there was only one idea left in his mind. That's expensive. Chapter 84 The final preparation. All the raw materials used to modulate radiation-proof coatings are quite common. Even the special phosphor purchased from the official website is not too high. But this cannot withstand the huge loss and purification during the production process. No wonder the official finished products sold are priced at a contribution of 22,000 per liter. It's not that they are too dark, it's just that the cost is just that. This aspect is much more conscious than selling experimental equipment. At this time, Su-woo realized that the official radiation-proof coating finished products sold by him did not mean to cheat them in terms of price. The price is only 10% higher than the cost, and it is still a product that is almost monopoly. Even before the end of the world, it can be said to be cheap. Shaking his head, Su-woo transferred a construction robot. Let it take the radiation-proof coating that has just been made and go to the manufacturing center. Since the paint is precious, we can only pick up the important ones first. Robots, automatic equipment such as engineering vehicles, are enough to modify the core electronic parts outside and apply a layer of paint to ensure that they can operate normally and not be affected by radiation. However, large trucks cannot be saved. Whether it is the cab or the enclosed carriage behind. Considering the possible demand for manned cargo transportation in the future, you have to fill it up. And there is also a layer of radiation-proof paint on the exterior wall of the shelter itself. Su-woo thought about it. It is a big project to apply radiation-proof coating to the entire shelter. Just thinking about the total area of the shelter wall can make people feel dark. Based on 1 liter of radiation-proof coating, it can be brushed with 10 square meters. I want to paint all the exterior walls on the first 4 floors of the shelter, including the ceiling on the first floor and the floor on the 4th floor. At least 180 liters of paint with a total value of more than 3.6 million contribution value. But this is imperative. Although the shelter is located underground, the soil, rock formations, and thick concrete walls can all resist radiation to a certain extent. But if the external radiation is strong enough, it is not said that it meets the standards of radiation disasters. Even a little weaker is enough to have a certain impact on the shelter. The shelter is the home where Su-woo lives on weekdays. As long as he doesn't want to be at home in the future, he has to carefully avoid one place with radiation after another. As long as he still wants to eat the output of normal hydroponic farms and farms. The expenses of these radiation-proof coatings cannot be saved at all. Not only can't save it, Su-woo even planned to use survival points to enhance the radiation resistance characteristic on the basis of applying radiation-proof coating. But after thinking carefully and thinking about it again and again, he still pressed this impulse for the time being. The lessons from the last storm are still vivid in my mind. No one can be sure that when facing a radiation storm next, there will be only radiation disaster. In case, if there is something else happening, but you will use up all the survival points in advance. Then I'm afraid I can only stare at me. From this perspective, only by mastering enough survival points can you have the initiative. Of course, that's it, the places that should be used must be used. For example, Su-woo's line of sight was on the three-dimensional map, and the exit passage stopped for a while. With the miniature mecha, my own life safety is completely guaranteed. Originally the shelter exit channel that was the most important safety checkpoint, the control could also be slightly relaxed at this time. The daily supplies of the shelter are allowed to enter and exit through this passage. Since communication with the outside world is needed, considering the radiation problem, a multi-stage purification room for eliminating residual radiation is built using the special structure of the outlet channel. It has also become a necessary thing. In addition, the outer door of the exit passage and the isolation door on the inner side must be added with a layer of special lead plate and then applied with radiation-proof paint. There are also door walls that are close to each floor and the lifting platform, which also have to be brushed. And then, the fifth underground floor that is being excavated, the vertical passage that is separately opened for transportation of construction waste, etc., also needs to be modified. Build another place near it to eliminate radiation residue. Well, there is also a drone lifting platform, and the multiple isolation doors on that platform channel also need to be painted. Then are ventilation ducts, air purification systems. Su-woo modified the three-dimensional map of the shelter. We have tried to strengthen and complete all possible places where communication with the outside world. And after this change, the workload of engineering robots and construction robots is immediately full. At least these modification tasks cannot be completed without 3 or 5 hours. No mistakes, 1 song, 1 content, 1 in 6, 1 book, 1 bar, 1 reading. That's all. The raw materials for radiation-proof coatings are probably enough. There is no need to go for additional purchases. I checked it over and over again and made sure that there were no omissions in my arrangement. Su-woo breathed a sigh of relief. Special phosphors that are purchased from the official website are required. Although it is one of the main materials for radiation-proof coatings, it actually accounts for only 1/20th of the total cost. In terms of conversion, only 1000 contribution value phosphor is needed per liter of radiation-proof coating. Su-woo has modified this time. The consumed phosphor may only account for about half of the current stock. But next time I purchase it from the official, you can buy some plants that can extract phosphors. In the future, a special place will be opened in the 5 underground floors or other layers to plant. This kind of important resource must be fully produced by itself in order to make people feel at ease. New plans have been completed for the shelter. The part of the work belonging to Su-woo is completed. Next, he just needs to wait quietly for the radiation storm to come. On the console, switch the home screen to a ground monitor. Su-woo looked at the trucks and busy engineering vehicles that were parked on the ruins of the farmyard that had been flattened, waiting for unloading. The large shelters drew most of the construction machinery, but a small part of it was left in the end. It does not affect loading and unloading. Su-woo has made all the preparations. And these workers who are still on the surface. How many of them can die safely under the influence of the radiation storm? But these are all things that need to be considered by the large shelter management to whom they belong. As a vested interest, Su-woo has no direct relationship with the workers. Even if you know that they will not be too optimistic in the future. I can't make any precious radiation-proof coatings to share with them. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 85 Radiation Storm. Whether you are prepared or not, are you willing or not? Time continues to flow as usual. The sky gradually turned from the darkness of the day to the darkness of the evening. In the forecast, the time node where the radiation storm may arrive at the earliest is quietly coming. And a quarter of an hour later, just as everyone who held their breath and was waiting for the impact was about to breathe a sigh of relief, the purple skylight that had gradually sparse in the past 10 hours. Suddenly, it burst out hundreds of times brighter than before. The whole sky. For a moment, it seemed to be occupied by a layer of purple halo. It looks vast and magnificent. At the same time, all radiation detectors arranged on the surface emit sharp alarms. They detected the radiation values that appeared on the surface, soaring upwards at an incredible rate. It quickly exceeded the security limit and then continued to grow dozens and hundreds of times. Hear you. This is the news that makes everyone who pays close attention sank. Just 1/4 of an hour later than the earliest predicted time is almost no extra time for preparation. All refuges that are lucky and do not take timely prevention will continue to swallow the bitter fruits of insufficient preparations from this moment on. And to make up for this mistake, perhaps there will be many people who will be plagued by cancer and even the price of their lives. Zhonghe City Urban District. Outside a small personal shelter. Several young men wore simple thermal insulation suits with oxygen cylinders and opened the heavy door of the shelter. The rolling heat waves brushed through the less tight insulation they wrapped, making them feel a slight discomfort. But soon, this strange feeling is replaced by excitement. Look, I didn't lie to you. How beautiful the sky outside. It's better than the aurora I saw in Antarctica. The leading young man was proud. Since I have discovered a change in the sky through the camera outside not long ago. It took him a lot of effort to persuade others to agree to open the shelter door. Now it seems that it's all worth it. If you miss the opportunity to witness such a magnificent scenery, you may be in regret for the rest of your life. His friends had no objection at this time. They were all immersed in the dreamy purple light that was illuminated by the ground. It would be great if the temperature could be lower. It must be a great time to have some chilled beer and snacks here. A friend who spoke with a little regretful expression. Just standing and watching, there is no appreciation of eating and drinking, and the experience is profound. Just think about it with cold beer and take a bite of the barbecue with sauce. Thinking of this, his expression suddenly changed slightly, and he felt a little urge to vomit. Subconsciously closing his mouth, he tried hard to suppress the slight discomfort in his body. Raise your head and let your eyes reflect the aurora in the sky through the mask. Such a rare opportunity to go out, you can't act disappointed. Let's talk about everything until you go back. Behind him, the metal door of the shelter reflected a faint light. Like a tombstone lost in the wilderness. Official Shelter No. 9. A certain residential gathering area. Old Zhao, are you really going? I heard from others that there is a serious radiation outside. Going out will be bad for your health and may also get cancer. A middle-aged woman looked at her husband who was about to go out with some anxiety. There was deep concern in my eyes. That's about the situation of no protection. We have radiation-proof clothing from shelter. There are special rest stations for surface work within a few hundred meters. There won't be any problem. Zhao Haihua comforted his wife. He actually had some doubts in his heart, but this doubt was soon replaced by helplessness. When you go to the ground to work, you will be paid 3 times the reward and you can also buy some medicines. No mistakes, 1 song, 1 content, 1 in 6, 1 book, 1 bar, 1 reading. Hasn't Yuan been having a headache lately and can't sleep? You are also a little anemia and need to make up for it. There is also a little more food. It is said that after a while, the daily distribution amount will be reduced. The middle-aged man was talking nonsense. After moving into the shelter, he always saw the embarrassment of his family. Now that he has the opportunity to improve, he must hold on to it no matter what. But if something happens, the middle-aged woman had a little choked in her tone. She also felt a little sorry for her child and wanted him to live a better life. But, thinking about it again, if my man died on the surface of the earth, the sky would probably collapse. You just think too much. I'll only stay for 3 days in total, what big thing can happen? Zhao Haihua was about to continue saying something when a rapid ringtone suddenly rang outside. That's the managers urging them to come and gather. He stopped the follow-up words that had not been said yet and patted his wife on the shoulder comfortably. Everything you want to say is reduced to one sentence. Wait for me to come back. Half an hour later. A group of workers wearing radiation-proof clothing made of thermal insulation and metal fibers left Sanctuary Number 9 on a modified bus. I entered a world covered by purple sky light, a magnificent and dreamy world. Being near them. On the transportation network not far away. There are still many different vehicles driving in a constant stream. However, compared with more than half an hour ago, the chances of these vehicles passing through the surface of the road were significantly higher. From time to time, you can see a car that is inexplicably shutting down, stopping on the road or simply hitting an obstacle on the side of the road. A sudden radiation storm. In their own way, they are constantly eliminating the human beings who appear on the surface who cannot adapt to its existence. The ruins of the farmyard. The second floor of the underground shelter. A brightly lit control center. With the arrival of the radiation storm, Suwu laid 10 kilometers around the shelter, reaching the monitoring network deep in the mountainous areas 40 kilometers away. Finally started to really work. Send back the latest changes in the environment continuously. That's why. In the entire Zhonghe city, in addition to the official shelter. He is the first person to understand the overall situation of the city. Based on artificial intelligence's deduction and modeling of these environmental data. The most severe radiation has been proven to appear in a certain area in the mountainous area, reaching 20 millimeters per second. In other words, if humans stay there without protection, they will be at risk of death after at most 3 or 4 minutes. It is relatively better within the urban area, but it is generally not allowed to move for more than half an hour. Chapter 86 Prevention of Shelter. For the time being. With the cabin lead plate blockage, you can still stay on the surface near the city for a few hours even in those inferior radiation suits. But if the time is longer, it's all up to you, it's all up to you. Suwu made a summary. This is good news for those shelters. They can still transport supplies through the ground, but the cost is a little bit higher. For drivers, the situation may be better, but it will definitely not be much better. The shelter will take away most of this part of the benefits. For example, I originally planned to let them drive an hour later and go back to take a turn. It will now be extended to more than 6 hours. Basically, the lethal dose of radiation is arranged. Even in many shelters where supplies are scarce. Even lead plates and inferior protective clothing may not be able to be taken out, and the transport workers can only resist it. The consequences are even more difficult to say. At the same time, there is good news and naturally bad news. These radiations that appear on the ground are not static or follow some fixed growth law. After the first 10 minutes of explosion stage and entering a stable period. Every time a period of time, areas with different radiation intensity will undergo random exchange. If you have bad luck, even if you stop and stay in place, you may be in the mild area of low radiation the moment before, and the next moment, you will be in the fatal area of high radiation. Focus on a random and exciting one. This time, on the screen of the main console, the data transmitted has decreased significantly. Suwu clicked to view the details. It was found that some communication transceivers were interfered and were temporarily offline from the monitoring network. Wireless interference is still here. Suwu sighed, and the expected dilemma came as scheduled. Although I have been mentally prepared for a long time, I still feel a little regretful. Fortunately, the communication signal tower erected on the small bunker. It seems that after the strengthening of the survival point, the anti-interference ability has been greatly enhanced. It was not affected by the radiation storm. Still in a stable surrounding area within a radius of 15 kilometers, a high-speed network is provided. Suwu casually checked the social software on his own network. Perhaps because the time is too short, the real insiders are still busy dealing with related things. The arrival of the radiation storm did not make too loud noises there. Most people are still discussing the aurora in the sky, the videos of rockets being shot by a driver at the ruins of a farmyard, the daily life of a shelter, etc. There are even many people who are still in the game, tirelessly fighting with other players and manned machines. To some extent, this is also considered peace. Suwu felt a little comfort in his heart. This little spiritual shelter he built. At this cruelest moment, there is still some atmosphere of the once prosperous era. Retracting attention, Suwu switched the screen to the ground. On the ground. As the number of people in the activity decreased, the ruins of the farmyard showed signs of returning to silence. Suwu still felt a little reluctant after all. The moment he noticed the radiation storm, he directly dismissed the engineering vehicle that was still working on the surface to help unload the goods. Instead, his own mini excavator and transporter were responsible for taking over. And for those truck drivers who stay here temporarily, some special lead plates are provided to reduce the impact of radiation on them. Of course, that's all he can do. Even when those truck drivers leave, they will reclaim the provided lead plates to shelter the next batch of arrivals. Removal of the system. I am just one of the many people. I hope you can survive well. Momo looked at the people working on the ground for a while and slightly evaluated the dose of radiation they might be suffering. Suwu switched surveillance and continued to patrol various places inside the shelter. Due to sufficient preparation in advance, the entire shelter was not affected by the radiation storm at all. Even in theory, the most dangerous place, the fifth floor underground, leads to the ground. It is also because it uses multi-stage isolation mode. That is, every time the cargo transport platform drops a distance, the lower isolation door will not open until the upper isolation door is closed. This causes the radiation value inside to remain at an extremely low level at all times. No mistakes, one song, one content, 1 in 6, one book, one bar, one reading. Plus, after the goods arrive on the fifth floor, it will first go through a special disinfection room for careful cleaning. In the end, there will basically be no residual radiation and you can enter the fifth floor warehouse. The fifth layer should be safe enough. Suwu secretly told him. But that's it. In a short period of time, it is impossible for him to enter the fifth floor of the underground by himself. No matter how safe it seems, it cannot be denied. There are frequent large amounts of external supplies coming in there. Maybe some dangerous substances will be missed one time and I will give him a hard time. Starting from the moment the radiation storm comes. When Suwu looks at all resources from the outside world, he must be alert. You can no longer have direct contact with them rashly. After all, everything is possible under radiation. And under the guidance of this idea. When Suwu painted radiation-proof coatings for the shelter, he even calculated the floor between the fourth and fifth floors to the exterior walls. Used to prevent dangerous radiation substances that may appear in the fifth layer with a very small probability. Confirm that the fifth floor is currently normal and safe. Suwu continued to patrol the fourth floor underground of the shelter. Since CNC machine tools and 3D printers are being produced at full power, another micro mecha needs to be replenished. The recycling center located here can only temporarily terminate operation. The high-temperature furnace that has been heated up will be cooled down again. At this time, the entire fourth floor seemed quite quiet. Only the temporary chemical laboratory is still lighted and modulated with radiation-proof coatings. Although Suwu has no need for radiation-proof coatings for the time being. But this thing has almost no shelf life anyway, so it is always a good thing to make a little more backup. The third floor aquaculture factory. In the incubation room, the scheduled procedures are still taking care of the eggs and duck eggs placed separately. These eggs were carefully selected for natural birth. Calculate the time, and it will be the day for them to come out of their shells in a few days. At that time, because of the arrival of these little lives, a breeding factory will probably become the most lively floor of the shelter. In the fish pond next to it, the fastest growing batch of fish fry has more than tripled in size. However, it will still take a long time to make grilled fish. Chapter 87 Mining Plan. The largest feed planting area. The various forages carefully grown inside are growing well, and many of them can be harvested in one go. In the planting area, a small area was specially cleaned up. There were a few little lambs with pure fur like white clouds. This is an extra precious gift from Chaoyang Shelter. Because there is no feeding space in the shelter, a small area can only be freed up in the planting area to temporarily resettle them. After waiting for the construction of the fifth floor, we will select places for them again. The second floor underground is where Suwu lives and major activities. Because I am too familiar with it, there is no need to inspect it carefully. After glanced at the normal air detection report, Suwu's eyes jumped to the first floor underground again. The first floor of the hydroponic farm is still quiet and bright. Growing vegetables, fruits and flowers here makes this layer full of green vitality. Every time you see it, it can make people feel relaxed and relaxed. And in the end of the world, an era of the extinction of all things, any jewelry, and all other luxury items, it is not as dazzling and eye-catching as this touch of verdant in the hydroponic farm. They are the real existences in the end of the world that can be called treasures. Beautiful things. It always makes people feel good unconsciously. After looking around the hydroponic farm, Suwoo's heavy mood caused by the radiation storm has been relieved a lot. There was an urge to protect this place. He finally built the shelter to its current scale and had such a wonderful home. How can you give up easily because of the disaster? After inspecting the shelter, Suwoo switched to the manufacturing center. After manufacturing the equipment in the chemical laboratory, the next manufacturing task here returns to the theme of the past. All are aimed at developing and expanding the shelter space as the primary purpose. At present, they are making small excavators and gravel trucks designed by Suwoo Gongsun. With the current residual productivity except for the production of radiation detectors, a small excavator or a gravel truck can be produced every 8 hours on average. In Suwoo's plan, after 2 small excavators and gravel trucks were produced separately, all the micro-series vehicles manufactured in the early stages of the engineering team, including gravel trucks, excavators and transport trucks, will be pulled to the manufacturing center for remodeling. Make their size and performance reach or at least close to the level of new versions of engineering vehicles. Because of these transformations, there is no smart chips and high-energy batteries inside the vehicle. It will not consume Suwoo's survival points. In a sense, it is equivalent to a free upgrade. As fastest as the day after tomorrow, the engineering team can complete the modification and expansion of this stage. At that time, the speed at which the engineering team digs underground space will continue to increase by 2 to 3 times on the current basis. It was also about 15 times the efficiency of the engineering team before obtaining CNC machine tools and 3D printers. What is the 15-fold efficiency gap? Before the emergence of CNC machine tools, it took the engineering team 12 days to dig out a 600 square meter standard space. If the efficiency is increased by 15 times on this basis, it will be possible to add a new layer to the shelter in less than a day. Even considering the current underground floor fifth, the internal floor height reaches 12 meters, twice that of the previous floors. The design area has also expanded to 3,000 square meters. The new engineering team can also be opened up from scratch within 8 days. Then, what limits the expansion speed of shelter is no longer the construction capacity of the engineering team, but the raw material supply problem. To be more precise, it is the supply issue of cement. It may be difficult to meet the need to build a shelter by relying solely on transactions. It's time to consider mining limestone mines. Its own cement. Suwoo thought of the small limestone mine that he discovered deep in the mountains when he was laying the monitoring network. At that time, I thought there was no road there, it was difficult to enter and exit, and it was extremely difficult to mine. Need to be put on hold temporarily. But now, facing a huge cement demand gap in the future, no matter how difficult it is, it will be. It really doesn't work, even if it is transported by drones in the air. We also need to transport the mined ore bit by bit back. No mistakes, 1 song, 1 content, 1 in 6, 1 book, 1 bar, 1 reading. Of course, in fact, it is not going to be that step. Retrieve a map of the mountain area taken by the nearest drone. Suwoo began to study carefully and the route to the limestone mine. The 6 kilometers before entering the mountainous area is the simplest section. Just walk directly along the original road. Then there are many mountain roads in the outer area of the mountain range. Those mountain roads were widened by many people who built shelters in the mountainous areas, and most of them were still barely available until now after the wildfires raged. Suwoo patiently searched in it. Soon, we made a mountain route with a total distance of about 7 kilometers. And at the end of this route, there is no more roads at a straight line of 3.7 kilometers from the discovered small limestone mine. There are only steep cliffs and rifts. This place. It's not easy to get on, it's not easy to get off. Suwoo fell into deep thoughts. Finally, he set his eyes on the mountain belly. If there is no road on the cliff, then just chisel out one. It doesn't have to be as high or wide as it is enough to allow an ore-type transport vehicle to drive in one direction. Even if you want to be faster. Even the road does not need to be chiseled out intact. It's okay to build a hanging plank road. The required brackets can be made of ready-made steel bars and angle iron. And the road surface does not require too good materials. Just pull it out of the scrap metal and get some iron sheets to make do. If the materials are not enough. In the past 2 days, a batch of finished steel has also been transported from other large shelters. You can all be involved. Anyway, after the small limestone ore is mined, these steel materials can be recycled. At most, some electricity will be lost in the middle due to resmelting. Then the canyon words. It is probably no problem to build a suspension bridge with a rope woven by drones and steel. It's still okay to use it. The entire road construction plan is not complicated. It is just that if the actual implementation continues, it is estimated that the resources and manpower and material resources that need to be called are not a small number. Perhaps the noise will be a little bit big. However, Suwu no longer needs to hide. Have the ability to support this action. Don't be afraid that the fruit will be picked by others after mining the small limestone ore. That's what it's decided. Wait until the engineering team is expanded. I just started to create such a team that can build bridges. Chapter 88 Pig and Cattle Farm. The next few days. Although the surface environment is many times worse than before due to the arrival of the radiation storm. But Suwu's life calmed down in his own shelter. The business of selling radiation detectors was terminated the day after the radiation storm, as most of the shelters had collected equipment. By the last radiation detector, it was delivered to the buyer who came to pick up the goods. Suwu has obtained a total of about 3 million contributions in total, as well as other materials that are nearly equivalent to 47 million contributions. Among these materials, the largest number of scrap metal and finished steel is scrap metal. Other ordinary, or precious metals, waste circuit boards, chemical raw materials, etc. are more or less. Such a rich variety of materials has brought an extremely solid foundation to Suwu. Basically, as long as he wants, he can use these materials to create most of the world's primary or backward industrial products with low technological content. In addition, he can also conduct research more relaxedly. He tried to add his once wild ideas to various mechanical equipment in the shelter and put them into practice. These ideas may seem simple and ridiculous now, but with the support of massive resources and the completion of artificial intelligence, some amazing finished products may not be born in the future. The third day after the radiation storm. With the need to make radiation detectors, CNC machine tools and 3D printers, which were released from all productivity, completed the expansion and transformation of the engineering team at the current stage in the morning that day. The construction efficiency of the engineering team has been officially improved to the past 15 times the level. And it was also on this day. As more and more people are killed, the radiation intensity on the surface will change over time and random adjustments will occur. It has also spread among major, medium and small refuges, and even ordinary people at the bottom. Many workers who were originally hired to work on the surface chose to quit out of fear. And the rest. Although he was still coaxed and deceived by the senior management of the shelter, he temporarily gave up the idea of leaving. But I also took this opportunity to put forward many requests. It is a trivial matter to give you a few times more rewards. However, work clothes and temporary residences with better protection capabilities are required. But it makes many shelters with scarce resources feel difficult to deal with. Therefore, in this case of soaring transportation costs, almost all small and medium-sized refuges in Zhonghe City have begun to actively or passively reduce the number of foreign transactions. Going forward with great strides towards an increasingly closed future. Day 4. 9:22 a.m. An ore transport truck transported several small lambs to the 5th floor underground, in the newly built sheep house. And outside the sheep house, several construction robots wait until the transport vehicle leaves. We started planting forage transplanted from the 3 underground planting areas on the ground where clean soil had been laid. More than half an hour later, a green grassland with an area of about 100 square meters appeared directly in front of the sheep house. It makes people feel refreshed and happy. This is after the engineering team, which was expanded to the limit on the fifth floor of the underground, excavated more than 1,000 square meters of space. The third formal building that Suwu began to build is the third formal building except for a large warehouse of 500 square meters and a large purification room of 100 square meters. The entire sheep house, along with the lawn attached to it, also occupies about 100 square meters of the underground floor. From the perspective of breeding, this design is undoubtedly quite wasteful and luxurious. A total of 1,200 cubic meters of precious underground space was paved with a lawn, and several lambs that may not have a cubic meter in total. The return ratio is so low that it cannot be seen. You should know that for many personal shelters, all the internal spaces may not necessarily have so many. But for Su Wu, who has developed now, he already has the capital to make such a little willfulness. Not only that, he also planned to continue to expand a garden, a fountain, and a small forest outside the lawn of the sheep house. Don't look at the fact that the surface vegetation is almost completely extinct now. But if you really want to buy some tree species, or even more space-based saplings, it is not difficult. The simplest channel is in the official contribution value warehouse opened by Zhonghe City. There are dozens of different saplings and seeds. And if you buy in small quantities, the price is also very cheap. No mistakes, one song, one content, 1 in 6, one book, one bar, one reading. If you really want to buy it, just buy some of the seeds to cultivate them. Ginkgo trees, osmanthus trees, peach trees, and other ornamental trees, you can try to buy larger saplings. The growth of trees needs to be calculated in years. It may take a long time to see them grow into a truly lush forest. Try to cultivate as soon as possible, and it can be achieved one day earlier. This is for the future. It would be fine if there is no conditions. Since there is a chance, Suwu doesn't want to see the forest in the future only in the video. In addition, it's time to purchase some pig and cow cubs. It has developed to this point. Suwu's shelter space is no longer as tense as before, and every point needs to be used to the extreme. There is also spare time to support some large animals. In this case, some things that will inevitably have demand in the future can be considered in advance. For example, pigs and cattle are common and the most demanding livestock, so you should buy a batch. Moreover, now should be the last chance to get it at a bargain. After a while, the supplies from various shelters will continue to be consumed and will not be so easy to buy. Of course, buying is to buy. There is no need to give these domestic animals raised purely for meat products special treatment like those little lambs. Suwu planned to turn more than half of the fifth floor into a livable natural garden. Some out of date can naturally not be placed on this level. Buy it first and find a place on the fifth floor to temporarily keep it. Then wait until the sixth floor is built, and then throw all the pigs, cows and cubs over. Just use the third layer aquaculture factory model to carry out industrial breeding. Do it when you think of it. Suwu has no habit of procrastinating. The official shelter warehouse list was opened on the spot. Using his contribution value of hundreds of thousands of yuan, he swept all the various tree species in the warehouse and even some flower species that were not in his shelter. More than a dozen piglets and calves were purchased respectively. Among them, the calves include beef cattle with good meat and dairy cows specially used for milk production. If you operate well, these numbers will be enough to develop a huge pig and cattle farm. Chapter 89 Emergency Warning. Just placed an order in the official warehouse. A short alarm suddenly sounded on the console. Artificial intelligence issued a prompt that abnormal fluctuations occurred on the radiation value of the shelter surface. It soared hundreds of times in a short period of time. Suwu switched to the monitoring on the ground. At this time, there were obvious signs of interference on the surveillance screen. It will flash and jump from time to time. Radiation disaster. No, not that strong yet. It should be just a normal random radiation change. After checking in a hurry, Suwu breathed a sigh of relief. He entered the command to temporarily close the external passage on the fifth floor underground. Then checked the communication system. As expected, the official satellite network has been almost completely cut off. Suwu's refuge has temporarily become an isolated island in information. However, the communication signal tower is unexpectedly firm. Even in this high-intensity radiation environment, the signal can still be transmitted stably. The ordinary shelter residents connected to the internet nearby did not even notice any fluctuations. If it is not within the high radiation area, the monitoring network is still normal. Originally, relying on communication transit devices and monitoring networks that transmit data will definitely be cut off in this case. However, due to the cover range of high-intensity radiation, it does not exceed 10 kilometers. After using the communication tower network, cover the original link and take over. The entire monitoring network is except for the small part that is directly affected by high radiation. The others were immediately launched and kept gathering the latest data back. After confirming that the overall situation is not much loss, Su Wu's expression became calm. Through the successful monitoring network of reconnection, he calculated the high radiation area above the shelter. It was found that it covers a range of about 3.4 kilometers in diameter. And it is not absolutely still. Instead, it moves in a random direction at a speed of 1 meter to a half kilometers per second. A high intensity should be considered the prototype of a radiation disaster. Luckily it will move randomly, otherwise it will be troublesome. After studying the radiation area for a while, considering the firmness of the communication signal tower, Su Wu couldn't help but think of the remote communication device on a large truck that was also upgraded through the survival point. They are all produced in systems, and the theoretical quality should not be much worse. However, large trucks are currently parked at the shelter's internal exit passage. Out of caution, Su Wu did not rashly open the door and let it go out for a test after thinking about it. It just let the drone lift platform deliver a reconnaissance drone to the rooftop of the small bunker. Half a minute later, the reconnaissance drone is activated. The connection was successful. Take off. A clear video image begins to be transferred to the console screen. This reconnaissance drone, which costs only 1 survival point, obviously also ignores the impact of high-intensity radiation. It seems that the items upgraded using the survival point. Even if it is ordinary, it is likely that there are unknown technology hidden. Su Wu's eyes on the survival point became even more different at this moment. Previously, with the increase in industrial productivity, more high-tech drawings were obtained. He even thought that the role of the survival point in low-end industrial products was almost zero. But now it seems, even the same thing. Whether or not it has been modified with a survival point is completely different. Controlling the reconnaissance drone, walked around the shelter for a while. Then at some point, on the surface map displayed on the console, a layer of light yellow light that was originally covered suddenly disappeared. Returned to its original normal color. This means that the radiation intensity in those places has recovered the average surface level after the radiation storm has fallen. Although humans without protection are still in danger after staying in it for a long time. But for the engineering team of Su Wu Sanctuary, it is already an environment where you can work normally and safely. With the vertical passage of the 5th floor underground, start activation again. A Type or transport vehicle full of gravel and soil was transported back to the ground. Su Wu's refuge has returned to its daily construction state. It is a strong radiation that can cause death in a very short time, and it leaves quietly as if it has never been there. No mistakes, 1 song, 1 content, 1 in 6, 1 book, 1 bar, 1 reading. 11:30 a.m. Su Wu, who had just resumed satellite network communication, found that the contribution value of 3 large shelters soared in the small group where the wealthy people gathered. That's not a good thing. The same is true even for those 3 shelters that received contribution values. Because it means that in the monitoring area they are responsible for, a real radiation disaster broke out. 3 places appeared in a moment. When Su Wu saw this, his heart tightened. Officially formulated standards for major disasters that need to give up everything and relocate to other cities. It was just 10 radiation disasters. At once, 3 places emerged at the same time. Anyone who sees it will be scared. And judging from the reactions of the others in the group. Obviously, the others were more panicked and fearful than Su Wu's heart. Some people even planned to sell the supplies urgently and contact the official to use their guaranteed ticket. At the same time, just when Su Wu was still checking the 3 public radiation disaster information, the official shelter also began their operations. They issued a yellow warning in the intranet used by middle and high-level officials. And the deep shelter relocation plan was immediately launched. The silent but thunderous movement began to affect more and more relevant personnel while most of the residents of the official shelter were still unaware of it. A large amount of precious materials were accelerated to the deep shelter at any cost. Some elite talents who have already entered the list in advance have begun to receive encrypted text messages. Then they immediately put down what they were doing, did not carry any conspicuous luggage, and in the name of going out to attend a dinner, they took their families to the designated secret evacuation location and react to the outside world. When the official deals with matters between other civil shelters, his reaction speed began to slow down significantly. There are many unimportant things, and there are even no responses. It seems that the person who deals with these things is no longer in his post and is missing. The official shelter has begun to move urgently. Everyone is good to take care of yourself. Make your plans as soon as possible. In the small group of rich people, the head of a large shelter sighed. Of course, he didn't want to give a reminder, nor did he need this. It's just worrying about the future of your own shelter. Everyone is an elite standing at the top of power, and naturally knows what the official virtue is. Even if they didn't say anything. But sometimes, actions and attitudes have already shown everything. Chapter 90 remarks on the list. It's going to be on the shelves. This book is probably about a story of collecting resources everywhere, building upgraded shelters, and then surviving and taking risks under various natural disasters. Various natural disasters on the Earth, viruses, radiation, heterogeneous invasions, after the Earth's cracking, the harsh environment on other planets in the solar system, disasters caused by various celestial bodies outside the solar system, and even the end of the universe, etc. In short, I will try my best to write down all the imaginable disasters. It will also allow the protagonist to create a particularly large refuge. There are also comments, but the author actually cares about comments. If you can make some reasonable comments, try to change them as much as possible. If it cannot be changed, it is because there are too many plots involved after the change, which may even lead to the collapse of the main line and outline. I have suffered once, but fortunately I woke up quickly and I came back later. I had no choice but to pretend that I didn't see it. The heroine's problem is just a decoration in this book, but it cannot be left out. Beautiful, pure, and gentle girls may not exist in reality, but in fantasy, they will definitely be one of the best things. As the protagonist who is destined to have everything, if this part is missing from the collection, it is not perfect enough. At the beginning of this book, because the heroine mentioned, she was chased by many people and was scolded for being poisonous and licking the dog but the protagonist really doesn't lick the dog. However, no matter what, the relevant plot was carefully redesigned, which also led to the continuous delay of the heroine's appearance time. But it will come anyway. After modification, the heroine who is positioned as a pet, lover and work assistant will appear soon. If you don't like it, just skip this part as an interlude, and it will not affect the main plot. Finally, please subscribe. There shouldn't be many people who focus on writing about natural disasters. But don't raise it to death. It's easy to support it. Just order 500 yuan. 500 orders, come to the bowl. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 91 The Separated Upper and Residence. 3 radiation disasters covered a total of 1.7 square kilometers. There is a small refuge that happens to be there. The people inside may be dead at the moment. Many of the small refuges excavated by private are like Suwu, with only 1 or 2 people. But the difference is that they do not have Suwu's survival system. Only by using the limited resources at hand can we develop and build refuges. And the result of this. These small refuges with single-digit populations are so weak that they can hardly withstand any unexpected storms. In high temperatures, they can rely on underground locations to isolate most of the heat. In the case of fires and poisonous gas, you can rely on your own gas mask and oxygen tank to support it. But facing the violent and natural disaster, it can penetrate the radiation from the shallow surface. What can we use to stop this danger that is simply unpredictable when building a shelter? If there is no foreign aid, these people are destined to die in pain when they encounter the consequences of the radiation disaster. Then let the small refuge that was designed and built by himself turn into a dead grave without anyone's maintenance. Research the information about the radiation disaster. Su Wu glanced at the news in the rich chat group and did not participate. Should the official be ready to move to a deeper shelter or organize a team to escape from Zhonghe City? It has nothing to do with him. His foundation is the small refuge where he is currently located, which is already accumulating to those hundreds of people, relying on the apocalyptic survival system and survival points. No matter when, it is impossible to really get involved with the official. However, the remaining bits of contributions on hand must be spent on this opportunity to buy seeds. Avoid not being able to find someone to be reimbursed later. After exiting the satellite network, Su Wu looked at his still calm internet again. These are the people who are immersed in the internet. Most of them are ordinary people in small and medium-sized shelters nearby, and the news is very obstructed. Many people, even some small refuge owners who did not receive invitations, even entered the official satellite network, knew nothing about radiation storms. The few people who know the news are just staying at the fact that there is radiation. I don't know much about the more serious radiation disaster. That is an open secret between the upper class of Zhonghe City, the heads of large shelters, and the official middle and senior management. Therefore, among them, there are still some people trying to contact friends and recruit companions on the internet. Discuss when to use your own simple heat-proof clothing and oxygen tank, and go to the ground to take a look. Then meet each other if you have the chance. Between his words and deeds, he is so optimistic that he is almost innocent. These people may die in disasters soon. But at least, life should not be lost in the present, just because of this passive ignorance. Think about it for a while. The surface information that Su Wu currently has and related survival guides are uploaded to the internet. Then use the permissions and put it on the social software. To serve as a warning and reminder. This is from Su Wu, a little pity for ordinary people. Finished this. Su Wu continued to place orders in the official warehouse. I randomly scanned some resources and cleared all the remaining contribution values at hand. Then it didn't stop for a moment. Immediately dispatched 10 construction robots, bring weapons and large trucks, and an ore transport vehicle to pick up the goods at the official shelter. This time I bought a lot of things. Most of them are puppies and cattle, as well as saplings, and fragile animals and plants that cannot withstand the harsh surface environment. Therefore, it can only be used to transport large truck compartments with temperature insulation, radiation protection and oxygen generation functions after multiple modifications and strengthening. And so many construction robots are dispatched, as well as an ore transport vehicle responsible for pulling the construction robots back. It is just to speed up the efficiency of loading. The official relocation actions will inevitably cause huge shocks. Even if you try your best to cover it up, there will still be aftermath to the bottom. In this chaotic situation, the faster the loading process is completed, the less likely the possibility of accidents. As for the road, instead, you don't need to pay too much attention. Currently, the threat of surface radiation is greater than that of humans. Even robbers are unwilling to rob materials in such a dangerous environment. Half an hour later. Official Shelter No. 1. A small fleet of large trucks and ore transport vehicles from afar. Through the dedicated lane, I slowly drove into the warehouse area of the shelter. No mistakes, one song, one content, 1 in 6, one book, one bar, one reading. Construction robots unload their weapons with them. Under the manipulation of artificial intelligence, we began to negotiate with the personnel of the official management office. Receive the materials purchased by the contribution value. As the core of Zhonghe City's power. The management system here is more formal than the No. 9 shelter. Of course, it may also be because the contribution value used by Su Wu is the highest authority special item that is only circulated in the upper level of Zhonghe City. Therefore, even if the entire management office looks a little in chaos at this moment. All kinds of information and documents were flipped in a mess, and no one cared about the water dispenser falling to the ground. However, he was still received by a dedicated person and successfully obtained the corresponding materials. It was during the loading process. Construction robots have received more intense attention than ever before. The residents of the shelter along the way, although they don't know what happened above. But I still feel the tension. This led to their extremely careful observation and examination of every team of outsiders who appeared here. Try to find clues about the wrong atmosphere from it. This is an intelligent robot in a private shelter, and the official will not use this kind of thing. I saw them last time, and they are said to be a large refuge from the waste stone village. But at that time they didn't send so many robots, only 2 of them came. The residents of the shelter whispered and exchanged information with each other. They could see some anxiety and confusion in each other's eyes. Look at the things they transported: piglets, calves, and some saplings. This should be preparing to build a farm. But what's the use of asking for saplings? Are you going to be planning to plant a forest? Maybe. I heard that those big shelters are very rich. The rich people have a big territory, so it's normal to get some flowers and plants. It's not surprising if they plant trees. With continuous communication and observation, the vibrant cry of pigs and cows diluted the residents' anxiety. In their perception, if something really happens, those rich people will definitely not have the leisure to build breeding farms and fiddle with flowers and plants. These things all represent that a refuge is being built in a beautiful direction. And construction means hope, and a safe and stable environment. Chapter 92: Fountain and Garden. After 2 consecutive transportations, large trucks will transport all the materials they have officially exchanged back. After the disinfection procedure that has been formed, the 10 returned construction robots, along with the 2 construction robots left in the shelter and 2 engineering robots. They all began to be under Suwu's command. Gathered on the 5th floor underground to build a temporary shack for newly arrived pig and cow cubs. Next, new soil layers were laid near the sheep house and the lawn, and seedlings and flower species were planted. Then, some seeds that are not available for the time being moved to the chemistry laboratory on the 4th floor underground. Put these seeds in a container created in the environment imitated in the official seed library and store them temporarily. After some busyness, a land of about 200 square meters was expanded outside the lawn. On the land, more than 20 newly planted saplings, transplanted flowers, and shrubs used as embellishments have given this place a little bit of pastoral atmosphere. The planting area of these trees, flowers and plants will continue to expand outward in the future. It is best to reach more than 2,000 square meters and close to the size of 5 basketball courts, so that it looks a little bit like a little. Then, another fountain is built in the middle. It's better to make statues, pools and floors out of white marble and then lay a layer of pebbles. Suwu carefully drew the plan for the 5th floor. For now, there is no material for making fountains in his sanctuary for the time being. There are even no related items in the official warehouse. In the end of the world, there are few shelters that will stock up on these things that are unlikely to come in handy. At most, it is to use some for your own high-rise buildings and when decorating your residence. But that is also something in use and will not be sold. However, if you really want to find it, you may not be able to find it. There are many buildings decorated with marble in the entire Zhonghe city. Although most of them have become ruins. But as long as you are patient, you can still find some suitable materials. After all, Suwu just wanted to build a fountain, and it was not necessary to build a large-scale construction. As for pebbles, there are more in the wilderness. Then the water in the fountain and the pool. In the future, it will be mainly provided by a large water tank newly built on the 5th floor. In fact, in Suwu's real plan, making a fountain is actually accompanied by it. The big water tank, which is expected to reach 6,000 cubic meters, is the real focus. Currently, the water source in Suwu shelter depends almost entirely on groundwater and a small water storage room located on the 2nd floor of the underground. But groundwater is not safe now. Radiation from the surface can penetrate shallow soil at any time and contaminate water sources located underground. If it reaches the worst, perhaps the water purification system that has been strengthened by the survival point can no longer purify the sewage. Only relies on the water stored in the shelter in the past for circulation. And the large 6,000 cubic meters water tank was built to deal with this worst case. The newly built large water tank does not occupy the original 5th floor space. There will be an additional place next to the 5th floor to store water. In this way, more space can be made available to build the garden. Strive to build the 5th floor into the most beautiful natural world among all shelters. Suwu's vision is very beautiful. However, if you want to truly realize it, there are still many things that need to be solved. For example, in normal forests and gardens, essential earthworms and insects, etc. If Suwu doesn't want to introduce these things, he can only build professional farm robots to replace their responsibilities. And just then, on the console screen, a warning from artificial intelligence suddenly came again. This time it was an earthquake warning. Artificial intelligence transmits back geological exploration data based on the monitoring network. After comparing the database, the historical earthquake data from all over the world, it is calculated that Zhonghe City will have a high probability of an extremely high-intensity earthquake in the future. As for the specific time, just within 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Su Wu's eyes paused on the warning content for a few seconds, and his eyes froze. What can I do in 2 minutes? Su Wu's answer was given by his actions. No mistakes, 1 song, 1 content, 1 in 6, 1 book, 1 bar, 1 reading. He quickly turned off and cut off all non-essential equipment inside the shelter through artificial intelligence, including CNC machine tools and 3D printers being produced in the manufacturing center, engineering teams that continue to explore and expand new spaces on the 5th floor, and 2 operating geothermal generators, as well as lighting on each floor, etc., or forcibly shut down. Among the ranks of the robots are in the corner and fix their bodies. Also enter standby state. Then, Suwu started the reconnaissance drone marshalling again. Let it take off urgently. After doing all this, let's see if there is still some time. Suwu logs into his own internet and satellite network. An early warning message was sent out above. With his current status, the warnings issued will not be regarded as jokes. But due to the short time, there are only a limited amount of things that people who see the news can do. At most, let them find a relatively better place nearby. 2 minutes and 15 seconds passed in a flash. The predicted earthquake came as expected. The first is the slight vibration covering all areas of Zhonghe City. Then more than 10 seconds later, a huge crack suddenly appeared in the wilderness without any warning. At a speed of 1 to 2 kilometers per second, it extends into the distant mountains in the blink of an eye. And the same moment when the crack appears, it is like a signal. The intensity of the earthquake in the wilderness began to suddenly rise by several orders of magnitude. The originally flat ground seemed to be thrown into the water surface of a huge rock, and layers of wavy water patterns were raised. Then, these vibrations spread to the urban area of Zhonghe City in the distance. In an instant, the tall buildings that once stood tall in the past storms began to shake like pendulums. Countless items were thrown out of the high-rise buildings. It turns into dense showers and splashes on the ground. A few minutes later, more cracks appear randomly in urban areas, wilderness, and in the suburbs. Large tracts of land are broken and sunken. Some buildings that were unfortunately located in it began to gradually settle down. And the lower ruins. Then he simply sank into the depths of the ground and disappeared. Several small and medium-sized refuges are also located in these sunken areas. Thousands of people didn't even have time to send any message to the outside world for help. Just as their shelter was pulled into the deeper underground. Then, under the movement and squeeze of huge rock formations, the space to be accommodated gradually is lost. Until it dies of suffocation. Chapter 93 Earthquake. Maximum refuge. At the moment of the earthquake, it was also in great chaos. Indescribable panic and fear, like a plague, quickly spread in this large refuge with a scale of 50,000 or 60,000 people. Their strengths. A former billionaire, a commercial giant in Zhonghe City. Wu Honggan summoned the team of the security department at the top of his lungs and let them guard him. But in the face of the great power of nature, the weapons in the hands of these guards have no effect at all. They can't find the enemy. Or any wall in front of you, even the floor under your feet and the ceiling above you, or all enemies. Those walls poured with special alloys, with amazing thickness, constantly making tooth-sourcing creaking sounds. Then it twisted and deformed, and at some point, under everyone's terrifying eyes, it suddenly cracked. A large amount of soil and gravel mixed with various debris poured in like a flood. They were all over in the blink of an eye. However, what is better than small and medium-sized shelters is that the huge size of Hongtu shelters itself still has a little bit of struggle in this huge change in the earth. Even though the partial collapse had fallen, Wu Honggan, as the ruler, had lost his trace. But more refuge residents still able to curl up in every corner and get a temporary chance to breathe. But this is not luck, but the beginning of a greater ordeal. The continuous earthquake broke through the soil and rocks above the shelter and tore the exterior walls of the shelter hiding underground. Let the shelter be directly exposed to the high temperature and radiation on the surface. And because the generator, air circulation system, and central air conditioner of the shelter were destroyed during vibration and stopped operating. The shelter room and aisle are also temporarily preserved. It immediately became hot at an astonishing speed. It is like becoming a purgatory furnace. Tens of thousands of humans are crying and asking for help in this nightmare environment. But nothing helps. No one can come to rescue, and no one can even hear their mourning. In the end, all the survivors in the shelter were exhausted in pain. Everything gradually returned to silence. Only some inventory areas of ammunition and fuel in the shelter are left, with occasional movements caused by burning and dying. We are still telling the outside world that there once was a prosperous dungeon town here. One of the biggest enemies in Suwu's revenge plan. Before he could take revenge, he had completely disappeared into the earthquake. The 17th minute after the earthquake began. After ravaging the city of wilderness and rivers. A huge vibration began to spread near Suwu's refuge. This time, there are no more obvious waves on the ground. But cracks that cracked from time to time and suddenly closed. But it also indicates that the earthquake not only showed no sign of calming or weakening, but became more violent and deadly. However, all the energy is hidden under the earth. The ruins of the farmyard. Second floor control center in the shelter. Suwu sat in front of the console and looked at the video sent back through the reconnaissance drone on the screen. For the first time, I felt unprecedented tragic. He never thought of it. One day, you can actually see the Earth that once thought was extremely solid, which would set off a huge wave like the ocean. I never thought that the tall buildings like erected aircraft carriers could one day sink into the depths of the ground in just a dozen seconds. In the face of this terrifying power of nature, all human struggles and resistance are as small as dust. My mind was shocked. Artificial intelligence has popped up new warnings. This time, it is no longer a yellow warning, but a dark red hazard warning. The core area where the earthquake is most active was officially transferred to the vicinity of Suwu Sanctuary. In a few seconds, the vibration of the control center was several times stronger. On the console screen, the three-dimensional map of the shelter will automatically expand to occupy the entire screen at this moment. Then some red marks began to appear on it from time to time. That is where AI detects in real time, where shelters are damaged everywhere. Another low roar came. A 1-meter-thick concrete exterior wall somewhere on the 4 underground floors was easily smashed like thin paper. Expose the internal reinforcement, iron plate, and materials with waterproof and temperature insulation. No mistakes, 1 song, 1 content, 1 in 6, 1 book, 1 bar, 1 reading. Warning, the exterior wall of the Industrial Recycling Center has cracked. Outdoor radiation invasion was detected. Start to close the relevant channels. As the danger escalates further, the shelter body begins to suffer severe damage. The white light in the control center turned red. Coupled with the strong vibrations of the ground and the walls. For a moment, it seemed like the end of the world. It's no longer safe here. Suwu stood up and took a last look at the warning that the shelter damage displayed had reached 20%. Walked towards the miniature mecha that had already opened the cockpit. And at this time, the vibration on the floor became stronger and stronger, and all the small objects that were not fixed in the control center began to jump. Suwu was not aware of it for a while and did not master the balance. My body staggered and almost fell down. But after all, it is only 2 or 3 meters away from the miniature mecha. He leaned forward slightly, and then took advantage of the mecha's body to stand firm again. Then he stopped hesitating and sat in the cockpit of the mecha. A few seconds later, as the cockpit is completely closed, an external image is displayed. The self-circulation and survival system of the micro-mecha has also begun to officially operate. Suddenly, Suwu felt that the whole world around him became quiet. The low roars that lingered in my ears and the violent shaking caused by the earthquake seemed to have completely left him. But when he turned his eyes and saw the water cup thrown out of the console by vibration, but immediately realized it. The disaster never left him. But there is now a layer of extra tough armor between him and the disaster. The remaining power is 100%. After glanced at the power reserves of the miniature mecha, Suwu felt a little shocked and calmed down completely. Full of electricity, and the light blade thermal cutting knife in your hand. Make him fearless. Even in the worst case, the entire shelter sank deep into the ground. Just relying on the light blade in the hands of the miniature mecha. He was also confident of digging out a passage to return to the ground. It is confirmed that there is no danger in your own situation. Suwu began to have the energy to observe the situation outside. As his attention shifted to the outside, the miniature mecha's tactical computer immediately passed the low roar that was still surrounding the outside, and after lowering the volume, it passed in. For Suwu to make better judgments. Chapter 94 The Real Beginning of the End of the World. Through the synchronous screen of the mecha, Suwu saw that the control center did not change much. In addition to the water cups rolling on the ground, there are some other small objects. There was no sign of damage throughout the control center, including the screen on the console. Even the console is still running normally. Continuously gather and display the information from all over the shelter. As the command center of the refuge and the place where Suwu stayed the most. The security of the control center is the best in the entire shelter. If there is no micro mecha, this is actually the safe house and the last place that Suwu originally envisioned. Think a little bit. Suwu did not drive the mecha to leave the control center and ran around outside. During special periods, even if you rely on the excellent performance of the micro mecha, you should not be too careless. And if you just want to know about the shelter and the situation outside. Actually, there is no need to go out of the control center. Thoughts move slightly. The panoramic screen in front of Suwu changed a lot. The operation page of the console screen appears. Through the tactical computer of the mecha, Suwu reconnected with the artificial intelligence of the shelter. The cockpit was temporarily set up as the command center of the entire shelter. The current overall damage rate of shelter is 21%. The water supply pipeline of the hydroponic farm has broken, the temperature regulation and the light regulation system has failed. Some areas of the fish pond in the aquaculture factory have cracked and there are signs of seepage. The high-temperature furnace number 2 of the industrial recycling center was impacted by external forces. The shell was severely twisted and deformed. The ventilation duct part was cut off, and the air purification system efficiency was reduced by 67%. The damaged reports were refreshed in front of Suwu's eyes. But carefully sorted it out. In fact, the losses are not too serious. The biggest impact is the reduction in efficiency of the purification system and some ventilation ducts are cut off. This means that air quality will drop rapidly in some places in the shelter. It may even cause dyspnea in the organisms. But it's just an environmental issue. It is far from the point where it affects the main structure of the shelter. It seems that luck is pretty good. The shelter is strong enough to survive this earthquake. When this idea just emerged in Suwu's mind, the picture in front of him suddenly stumbled. The originally refreshed loss report has become a few seconds before it will pop up. Obviously, it is affected by increasingly severe earthquakes. Artificial intelligence has begun to cause failure and interruption in cameras and sensors throughout the shelter. It is difficult to monitor the changes in the entire shelter in full. Even the laptop itself where artificial intelligence lives has a faint tendency to go on strike. Suwu waited for a moment and found that the situation did not improve. He simply disconnected the artificial intelligence and switched back to the tactical computer of the mecha. At the same time, it took over the reconnaissance drone marshalling hovering over the shelter. Since it is no longer possible to obtain the internal loss report within the shelter, then why not go and see what's happening outside? View from the sky. The ground where Suwu's refuge is located. The vibration is no longer frequent. It's just that from the occasional hills or two that will suddenly sink without any warning, or rise up from the ground and rise up to a height of more than 10 meters. The collisions hidden under the ground are still frequent and fierce. And at the same time, the vibration in the northern mountainous areas became more intense. It seems that the center of the earthquake has gradually begun to move there. A few minutes later, deep in the mountains, a mountain nearly 1,000 meters high suddenly collapsed from bottom to top while shaking. Billions of tons of soil, sand and stone fell down, and the smoke and dust stirred up to the sky. Then it spread to the surrounding area, forming a cloud of dust covering the sky. Then dozens of seconds later, a deafening sound rolled in from the depths of the mountains. Completely suppress the movement caused by the earthquake. Suwu looked at the scene, which was almost a different world. For a moment, I felt an indescribable impact in my heart. Nature personally showed Suwu the corpse of the mountain at close range. What an incomparable power it has. I don't know how long it took. The earthquake finally subsided. No mistakes, one song, one content, 1 in 6, one book, one bar, one reading. And at this time, Suwu also received additional messages from the system during the non-daily midnight settlement period for the first time. Open black lens bracket symptoms detected disaster has come. Close black lens bracket. Confirm that the doomsday has officially begun. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket open system update. Close black lens bracket. This update is expected to last for 3 hours. Close black lens bracket. Suwu turned his gaze to check, his expression slightly stunned. So it wasn't the end of the world before. Now is the real beginning. No one can answer Suwu's doubts. After the search was fruitless. He could only put this matter aside for the time being and wait until the update was completed. Reconnecting to the shelter's artificial intelligence, Suwu began to inquire about the damage to the shelter. There is no interference from earthquakes. This time, artificial intelligence quickly gave feedback. In the 56% shelter area in good condition, such as monitoring, sensors, etc. There are about 20 broken exterior walls in total, as well as thousands of damaged circuits and lamps. Among them, the recycling center is the most severely damaged. The radiation value that permeates there has reached a level close to 1/4 of the ground. The pool leakage in the aquaculture factory on the 3-story underground is also quite serious. If you leave it alone, it is expected that all the water in the fish pond will be dried up in at most half an hour. It's a mess. After reading the report submitted by artificial intelligence, this idea came to Suwu's mind. And this is just the detectable part. There are nearly half of the shelter areas, which are currently in the blind spot for artificial intelligence monitoring. I don't know what it looks like. But after experiencing such a terrifying earthquake, he survived relatively intact. Already lucky than many shelters. You can't ask for too much. Take it slow. Now pick up the important parts and clean up the things you need. Wake up 2 engineering robots and 12 construction robots in a dormant state. Suwu temporarily organized them into the maintenance team. Then it is divided into 3 teams. Hurry up to the 2nd floor, 3rd floor and 4th floor respectively. The fish pond needs to be repaired quickly. Otherwise, the water that gushed out would spread to other places in the shelter, which would be a problem. The exterior walls of the recycling center must also be blocked. No more ground radiation can be allowed to pour in through the gap there. And the 2 places that require limited time repair were solved. The rest is to repair it one by one in an important order. Located on the 2nd floor of the underground, the control center where Suwu is located and the manufacturing center next to it is the most important core area in the shelter. Chapter 95 Repair of the shelter. As the white light upgraded by the survival point gradually spreads and disappears on the walls. The twisted and cracked walls of the control center gradually return to level, releasing a soft luster-like silver metal. The control center has been fixed. The communication adapter reconnected successfully. Start take over the communication tower. The internet started successfully. It has begun to take over the monitoring network, and an external disaster warning mechanism has been established. Repair the completed control center. It immediately gave the refuge a whole new vitality. From this moment on, Suwu once again mastered the first-hand information acquisition channel for the outside world. If there is any disaster, it will occur in Zhonghe City. He was still able to become one of the earliest insiders. Of course, being able to warn is one thing. Deep in Suwu's heart, he did not hope that there would be disasters and would continue to appear in this suffering land. Shortly after the control center was repaired, the CNC machine tools and 3D printers in the manufacturing center next to it were all restored as before under the fine repair of the 2 engineering robots. Continue to start the previous unfinished manufacturing tasks. And these 2 power-consuming large-scale enterprises started to operate. Suwu also immediately discovered that the power supply of the shelter has also become a problem that needs to be solved as soon as possible. At present, the power of the entire shelter is temporarily provided by the reserves in the high-energy battery pack. The original 2 geothermal generators are intact. But most of them were destroyed by the earthquake when they penetrated into the steam pipeline deep underground. This is even more headache than damage to the generator itself. If the generator breaks down, you can get it done quickly after you find an engineering robot. But the underground pipeline was destroyed and wanted to be re-entered. It's a big project that has tormented people. What's more, the nanomaterials used to lay underground pipelines that originally came with the extreme drilling machine have been used up. If you want to repair it, you may have to use the survival point and get some special nanomaterials. Let's start the ultimate drilling machine first. The rest, wait until the underground passage is opened. I glanced at the maintenance teams on the 3rd and 4th floors underground, and they had almost completed their respective repair tasks at this time. Waiting for a new job assignment. Suwu thought about it for a while and dispatched an engineering robot and 2 construction robots to the ground to inspect and manipulate the extreme drilling machine there. Then continue to direct the remaining robots to repair and clean up the shelter. In addition to the command center, production center, and generator. The importance of shelter is almost the same in other places. At this time, the exterior walls are restored uniformly and all radiation that invades the interior of the shelter is completely removed. Instead, it has become the highest priority in the remaining work. A total of 10 construction robots began to rush to different places in the shelter under the operation of artificial intelligence. Repair broken walls. And the remaining engineering robot. Then we start to go to the other half of the shelter areas that cannot be viewed by artificial intelligence. Go and fix the monitoring, sensors, and power lines there. Strive to enable artificial intelligence as soon as possible and be able to fully grasp the situation of the entire shelter. More than half an hour later. Control center, on the console screen. The 3-dimensional map of the shelter was finally lit up under the hard work of the engineering robot. And so, the statistics of the cracked exterior wall has changed from more than 20 places to more than 50 places. The amount of maintenance work required by construction robots has more than doubled at once. But for tireless robots, these are nothing. As long as they are provided with sufficient materials, they can continue to work with the same efficiency. When the construction robots complete the repair of the exterior wall, go to strengthen them with your survival points, so that the repaired parts perfectly blend with the original wall. The rest can be regarded as internal affairs of the shelter, and there is no need to grab time so much. When building robots repair the exterior walls, they simply mix waterproof and heat insulation materials with steel bars and cement to fill the gap. If you want to truly play a role in resistance, you must go through the strengthening of the survival point again. This kind of reinforcement consumes very few survival points and only needs to be calculated in decimal points. But the key to the problem is that Suwu must arrive at the scene in person and make direct contact with the parts waiting to be repaired, or be no more than 1 centimeter apart to stimulate the enhancement and upgrading effect of the survival point. This means that even if Suwu is driving the mecha, it will take a few seconds at least, and he will only be separated from the outside world by a layer of cement that has just been poured and has not solidified yet. There are certain risks to take. No mistakes, 1 song, 1 content, 1 in 6, 1 book, 1 bar, 1 reading. Micro mechas are all good, they are the armor at the weakest point, and the thickness is more than 2 centimeters. There is no way to meet the standards. If you have the chance in the future, you have to find a way to get another tight protective suit. Suwu, who had a little regret on his face, said in the future. In fact, after realizing the risk, he immediately set out to make engineering robots and 3D printers use radiation-proof coatings and other materials to give priority to the manufacture of a radiation-proof suit. Survival points are precious now, and we cannot invest in this kind of equipment that is not very useful for the time being. However, it is not a big problem to produce a simplified protective clothing that does not require a survival point. Whenever possible, Suwu didn't want to take any unnecessary risks. Outside the control center, fill all exterior wall notches in the shelter with cement. 10 construction robots, and engineering robots that remain in the shelter. It began to gather on the 2nd floor underground again. Starting from the control center where Suwu is located, gradually repairing all damaged areas along the way bit by bit. This time, there is no need to hurry up. Artificial intelligence can be allowed to operate step by step. And at this time, a construction robot temporarily responsible for delivery also delivered the newly produced radiation-proof clothing from the manufacturing center next door to Suwu. Suwu put on a radiation-proof suit and sat in the cockpit of the miniature mecha. Then manipulate it out of the control center. Outside, although the robots have started to repair work. But you can still see traces of earthquakes everywhere. Occasionally, there are exposed and hanging wires, and even some faint electric sparks burst out. Suwu didn't care much about this. All are just some superficial losses. With the hard work of robots, it is very likely that when he goes back and sleeps, he will find that the place is neatly taken care of again. Come to a just-filled exterior wall. Suwu first scanned it with a micro-mecha radar to confirm that the geology near the exterior wall is stable and it is unlikely that an accident will occur for the time being. Only then did he approach the past carefully and opened the cockpit door of the mecha. I just sat in the cockpit, pressed directly on the part of the outer wall that had not yet solidified through the radiation protection suit. A slight white light bloomed. Suwu made this exterior wall truly integrated with the surrounding area at the cost of reducing the survival point by 0.02. Chapter 96 Rescue. Next, Suwu wandered around in the shelter. It took more than 20 minutes to reinforce the remaining damaged exterior walls. In fact, it didn't take so long. But Suwu couldn't resist being too cautious. Every time you open the cockpit of the mecha, you must repeatedly confirm the safety of the surrounding area. There are slight abnormalities, such as slight aftershocks. Then he would immediately cancel his idea of going out and use the mecha radar to scan the surrounding environment again. This goes back and forth. Time is naturally extended a lot. And when he returns to the control center, engineering robots and construction robots have also completed the restoration of the passage outside the control center and the residential areas. Make the 3D map of the shelter on the console. A large green area representing security and order has been added. Next, the construction robots were divided into two and went to the breeding factory on the 3 floors underground and the hydroponic farm on the 1 floor underground. Engineering robots run back and forth between the 2 floors, and go wherever they need it. Inside a breeding factory and a hydroponic farm, most of the space is cultivated with cultivation racks such as rice, vegetables, fruits and grass. In this earthquake, many cultivation racks are inevitably shocked to the ground. Sprinkle all the crops grown. Fortunately, it has not been long since. After the construction robots straightened them and returned to their positions. Production is not expected to decrease much. As for eggs and duck eggs in the incubation room of the breeding plant. Because buffering and isolation are done better, there is basically no harm. And if nothing unexpected happens, in these 2 days, some chickens and ducks will break out of their shells. Make the breeding factory truly worthy of its name. Suwu did not pay attention to the repair progress of these 2 layers. After confirming that the radiation value in the shelter has completely returned to normal and the air purification system can transmit fresh air into every corner of the shelter without any obstacles. Then he began to turn his attention to the outside world. On the surface, the extreme drilling machine has been operated by several robots. Drilling restarts at the steam pipe position of the once geothermal generator. It is expected to continue working for more than 20 hours. In the meantime, Suwu also had to go out. Use survival points to supplement the nanomaterials that lay the pipeline for the extreme drilling machine. And not far from the drilling machine, communication signal tower standing on small bunkers. Miraculously, there was no damage in this major earthquake. After the shelter's AI reconnects with it, then he once again laid Suwu's internet to a radius of 15 kilometers. Suwu logged into the internet and browsed for a while. It was found that during the short period of time when the internet was reopened, many people had already come in to visit. This is good news. It means that many people survived the earthquake. However, in the updates they posted, the actual situation is not much better. Some people survived. But the shelter is already full of holes. The radiation and high-temperature heat from the outside world penetrate into the places where they live through the cracked earth and the broken shelter exterior walls, constantly compressing their living space. Even they don't even connect to the internet to do anything else. Just to upload the video, leave a last word. Let your life not disappear without any trace. There are 13 small and medium-sized refuges in the coverage of the communication tower. Only 9 refuges suffered little loss. The remaining one was swept into the depths of the ground and completely lost contact. There were 3 more severe injuries and were on the verge of collapse. This casualty ratio is a bit too shocking. I sorted out the information on the internet. Suwu sighed with some sympathy. The earthquake looked amazing. But in fact, most of the time, the power of earthquakes is concentrated in a certain place. As long as it doesn't happen to run into each other head-on, it's not difficult to hold on. At most, it was like Suwu's refuge. Some exterior walls were smashed, and the equipment inside various shelters was damaged or malfunctioned. Well, this seems to be very serious. Those 3 refuges on the verge of collapse. It is basically a desperate situation caused by the destruction of cooling equipment and then high temperature and radiation invading from the damaged exterior wall. In essence, there is no big difference from the situation encountered in Suwu's shelter. No mistakes, 1 song, 1 content, 1 in 6, 1 book, 1 bar, 1 reading. The difference is that they don't have an engineering robot like Suwu in hand. His eyes paused on a video on the internet. That was the last words uploaded by a middle-aged woman. There was no hoarse cry, no crying or sadness inside. It was just her instructions to her child who was in the north who had no time to go home before the end of the world. Make him pay attention to safety and learn to take good care of himself in life. And those plain languages. But for some reason, it suddenly touched Suwu's heart. It touched his mind. Just go and save them, it won't delay too much anyway. After a long silence, Suwu murmured to himself, as if he was convincing himself. In this great earthquake, the official still has no time to take care of himself, so it is impossible to draw out personnel to rescue outside the city. And specifically, it comes to the vicinity of Wangshi village. Looking around, he could have the strength to reach out to rescue. The tallest man standing at the highest point was Suwu himself. Any choice he made was actually enough to determine the ultimate fate of the survivors in those 3 shelters. Suwu made a decision in his heart. Then issue relevant tasks to artificial intelligence. It took less than 2 minutes. A large rescue team consisting of 1 engineering robot, 6 construction robots, a large truck, 2 special transport vehicles, and 3 small excavators. The assembly has been completed. Then they carry some weapons, rescue supplies and tools. Drive to the nearest medium-sized shelter in desperate situations. After the rescue convoy was dispatched, Suwu sat in front of the console on the 2nd floor underground. Switch the home screen to the perspective of the large truck cab. I soon saw where that mid-size shelter is located. When the convoy approaches, Suwu discovered that the refuge that was supposed to be located underground at 20 or 30 meters deep. At this moment, a considerable part of it has floated to the ground and was directly exposed to the high-temperature air and radiation on the surface. And most of the buildings that floated to the surface have been deformed and collapsed. It looks extremely miserable. Suwu thought about it. Let the 2 construction robots carry weapons and get close to the medium-sized refuge. Try to find the entrance. This task is not difficult. The original door of the refuge had been torn apart in the earthquake. The remaining entrance was simply covered with some soil gravel. After a little effort, the 2 construction robots cleared out a road to enter. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 97 From the Management of Artificial Intelligence. The indoor temperature is 65 degrees. Radiation magnification 125.7. Once inside the shelter. Before leaving, the detection module temporarily hung on the construction robot brought new environmental data back in real time. Perhaps it is the influence of some unknown factors caused by the major earthquake. After the earthquake, the temperature in the surface air fell rarely during the day, falling below the 70-degree average. This brings a faint glimmer of vitality to the survivors who escaped from the disaster. They are in some seriously damaged shelters. After the cooling equipment stops operating due to failure or lack of power, the temperature is close to the surface. Perhaps when I breathe, my lungs are still burned by fire. But it's not that I can't breathe. The radiation magnification is a relatively intuitive data. Multiplier 1 means that humans can move normally for an hour in this environment without obvious harm to their bodies. A magnification of 125.7 means that this safe time, which will not be significantly damaged, is shortened to less than half a minute. However, this is still a relatively low radiation value. After all, no matter how broken the shelter is, it can still provide some internal shelter. And in a state of unprotected surface, the current average radiation magnification is generally between 1000 and 2000. That is the that really makes people scary. Turn the camera on the head of the construction robot. Su-Wu looked around. The power supply here has obviously been cut off long ago, and there is almost no light source. If no night vision module is installed. Under normal circumstances, the visibility here will not exceed half a meter. It's dark like a tomb underground. The space and layout also appear very compact. Even near the shelter gate, there is only a lobby less than 50 square meters. The rest of the places are corridors and rooms with doors closed. Of course, most of the rooms had collapsed at this time. Some of the soil and gravel from the outside had even broken through the door and poured into the corridor from the room. With the deepening of construction robots, Su-Wu can even see a large number of refuge residents who are crushed into collapsed buildings or gravel. But, without exception, these residents have completely lost their breath and turned into lifeless corpses. After a few minutes of searching, the detection module on the construction robot suddenly heard some irregular sounds. Looking for the sound, two construction robots soon were in the depths of the shelter, a lobby that looked like a public canteen. A group of survivors with a population of about 200 or 300 were found. Who is the person in charge here? Let the construction robot close the door that was violently broken. Su-Wu carefully looked at the environment of the hall. There is obviously a backup power supply in the hall. The ceiling is still on and there is a noticeably modified air conditioner running. The detection module shows that the real-time temperature here is 48 degrees. Although it is still very high, it is already within the scope that humans can accept normally. Su-Wu's question received no response. These survivors, with different eyes, stared at the two construction robots that violently broke in. Among them are vigilance and fear. Robots are not humans after all. The body cast from steel looks a bit scary. The automatic rifles they carry also mean that they control the violence that is enough to massacre everyone here. There are also expectations and hopes. No matter who comes or what, it can appear in this desperate place at this time. They all mean that they have the possibility of being rescued and surviving. After waiting for a while, just when Su-Wu was a little impatient and planned to ask again. In the crowd, someone finally said hesitantly. There is no one in charge. I saw our director before, and was killed by a collapsed stone. This is a piece of news that I don't know whether it's good or bad. Based on the information Su-Wu had before coming. This medium-sized refuge, called Qingning, has ownership lies in their strengths, a former entrepreneurial star in Zhonghe City. The others were just workers hired by him. No mistakes, one song, one content, 1 in 6, one book, one bar, one reading. Without director's strength, it means that the shelter is temporarily in a state of unattached state. It also means that it is difficult for survivors to form unified and effective command for the time being. There is also limited understanding of the specific situations of the shelter. So that's the case. Then I will take over here for the time being. Thoughts change. Su-Wu made a decision in an instant. He operated it on the console. In the hall, many survivors' phones made a dripping sound. This is the AI that confirms that these survivors have online accounts on Su-Wu's internet. Then compare and confirm after completion. Artificial intelligence has begun to analyze the historical operations and speech records of these network accounts, as well as all other related traces. Finally, several people who are suitable for the sound tube were screened out. Chen Yan, Ning Zhengquan, and Xu Xiaoling come out. Compare the list given by artificial intelligence. Su-Wu manipulated the construction robot and selected the corresponding survivors. Then in their uneasy expressions, give them a set of wireless communication devices including Bluetooth headphones and portable microphones. You are temporarily responsible for obeying orders and managing others. Let's manage it. The uneasiness in Chen Yan and the others instantly turned into surprise and a slight excitement. Since people need management, it must mean rescue. Their hope for survival is undoubtedly much greater. Moreover, as a manager, you can have some small rights and get more benefits. It's just when they activate the wireless communication device and wear Bluetooth headphones. After a soft female voice came to his ears. All the excitement was like being poured over by cold water and was instantly extinguished. At this time, they remembered the first half of what Suwu just said. It turns out that they are really just tool guys who are purely sound tubes. Even if there are 200 or 300 people present, they don't need to choose which one to do what. The sound in the headphones was arranged clearly for them in advance. But the hope of obtaining privilege was shattered, and they dared not say anything more. One by one starts to perform tasks sent to them by artificial intelligence. Ask the survivor's identity and name. The rescue supplies transported by the subsequent construction robots will be distributed to the corresponding personnel according to the voice prompts. For example, assign a positioning bracelet to survivors without mobile phones, so that survivors with mobile phones without power can charge their mobile phones with the mobile phones sent. Give people with signs of heatstroke a small amount of medicine, etc. Chapter 98 10,000 tons of fuel. When the distribution of the rescue materials is not too much. The three survivors led the survivors to install monitoring and sensors in the hull to reinforce some areas that were not tight enough. And in this process, no one resisted among the survivors, and few even raised objections. Get rescue, have the gratitude for survival, and the deterrent guns in the hands of construction robots. They naturally accepted this leadership from Suwu. Anyway, everyone is in charge of it. As long as you can live well. The people in the canteen lobby are not the only group of survivors. The total population of the entire Qingling sanctuary reached more than 4,000 before the disaster. The scale of the shelter is much larger than that of Suwu. The place is big. When the shelter collapses, some living spaces that are closed and safe are always formed. It took more than 10 minutes. After searching most of the area of the shelter, Suwu found more than 1,500 survivors one after another. And this is almost all the living people in the entire shelter. More than half of the people died. Suwu shook his head and sighed at the fragility of life. It was because he rescued in time, and the main body of Qingning shelter was not damaged too much. Any condition is missing. Whether these more than 1,000 survivors can survive in the end is a question mark. These survivors are simply counted. Initial treatment was performed on severely injured and unable to move survivors. Suwu then handed over all the tasks to artificial intelligence to manage them. He himself started a real rescue operation. In this harsh end of the world, just finding people is not considered a rescue, and at least it has to provide them with a basic living space. Give them the opportunity to live through labor. Outside the shelter, 3 small excavators and 2 special transport vehicles have started construction mode. They flatten the shelter's exterior walls, some buildings and rooms that have no repair and utilization value, all flattened. Then use the wreckage and the dirt excavated on site. The remaining part of the shelter building was blocked tightly. Do not allow external radiation and high-temperature air to penetrate easily. And the only engineering robot in the rescue team. He brought 2 construction robot assistants and materials into the shelter. Go to repair the shelter's central air conditioning and air circulation system. Appropriate temperature and air are the 2 most important basic living conditions inside the shelter. As long as they are solved, power will be supplied. This rescue can basically be declared successful and ended. And then the rest. It depends on these survivors in the shelter to solve the problem by themselves. Suwu can at most provide them with some remote guidance on artificial intelligence. Then they will take back all their extra labor output in the future as reward for guidance. After the engineering robots started to repair it, Suwu discovered it soon. The central air conditioner and air purifier of this refuge are all intact. The ventilation duct was messed up by the earthquake. Many places are not even as good as just to knock down and rebuild. But this is not a problem. Robots only need to give some important places such as public canteens and repair them. The rest can be left to the survivors to slowly clear them up in the future. Anyway, these unimportant facilities, good or bad, do not prevent them from living. After repairing the refrigeration and ventilation equipment, the next step is to restore power supply. When Suwu manipulated the construction robot, he pushed open the metal door of the power supply chamber that had been somewhat distorted and deformed. The scene there was so shocking that he almost stunned. Good guy, there are actually 10 600 kilowatt thermal generators here. It's so rich. Unlike the general small shelter, small diesel generators are usually used. The generator of Qingning Refuge uses the same model of thermal generator as the power plant. At the same time, diesel, coal, etc. can be used as power generation fuel. 10 600 kilowatt thermal generators are activated at the same time. The power generation is almost 10 times that of Suwu's refuge before the earthquake. Certainly. In general, it is obvious that it is impossible for the lime shelter to activate them at the same time. No mistakes, one song, one content, 1 in 6, one book, one bar, one reading. It is already quite a luxury to keep one of them running for a long time. The rest, more of the function should be to act as spare parts. Most of the fuel in many diesel tanks have been leaked in the fuel warehouse. There should be more than 200,000 liters left. The thermal coal is basically intact. Preliminary estimates there is about 10,000 tons. Next to the shelter power generation room is a large warehouse where diesel and thermal coal are stored for power generation. Suwu took a little look. Among them, diesel leaked a lot during the earthquake. But the remaining part is still as high as more than 200,000 liters. The almost lossless thermal coal is as high as more than 10,000 tons. What does this mean for more than 10,000 tons of thermal coal? Adding up all the spaces in the first 3 floors of Suwu Sanctuary may not necessarily put down this amount of coal. Even if there are only more than 200,000 liters of diesel left. Its total volume also reaches more than 200 cubic meters. It completely overturned Suwu's imagination. For the first time, he realized that he had been between himself and those large-scale refuges. The material gap can actually be so huge. No wonder I couldn't buy anything everywhere on the market before. Even a few liters of oil must be controlled. This storage size. No matter how much resources you have, you won't be able to share. Even at this time, Suwu also found that he seemed to have to thank the official for his strict control of the materials. Otherwise, the little money he had after selling the house would not be able to compete with these rich people. Not to mention secretly hiring farmers to buy a few boxes of gasoline and diesel, I am afraid that even scraps may not be able to receive them. But no matter what, at least now, so much diesel and coal are mine. The lime sanctuary after the earthquake was less than half of the previous population. Plus, the director who is the ruler of the refuge and the management team that was previously dependent on the director no longer exists. If Suwu really wants to save electricity, in addition to the essential central air conditioning and air circulation system, other aspects of power consumption can be reduced to a very small extent. In this way, Suwuda can reserve the saved fuel, even the part in the inventory, for future use. Take it out for yourself first. And so much fuel. It is conceivable how huge the help it will be for Suwu. That almost equals the refuge he was already on the flying road and will get another rocket level booster. Speed up and run forward until you rush into the clouds. Chapter 99 Succession Rule. Have unexpected gains. Suwu's rescue motivation became more sufficient. He asked the engineering robot to start a thermal generator to get the shelter's central air conditioning and air circulation system back on. Then check the other 9 generators and be prepared to start at any time. Wait until the rescue is over. Suwu plans to rebuild a medium-sized high-temperature furnace here. Used to smell scrap metal. There is so much coal fuel here, so you have to find a way to use them. Although doing this means overdrawing resources in advance. If you cannot convert resources into powerful ones in time, it is really just a simple resource. How much role can be played in the future is a question. Maybe another earthquake will shake them all away. It would be better to use it first to let Suwu create more mining and resource collecting teams to speed up the snowball-like growth. More than 2 hours later, the rescue of Qingning Refuge has basically come to an end. In the entire shelter, the small piece of space where survivors mainly live, basic power supply, central air conditioning, ventilation and lighting have been completely restored. The damaged exterior walls of the shelter are also covered with thick wreckage and soil gravel. although it looks miserable and devastated from the outside. But at least, a relatively solid framework has been built for survivors. They can slowly start over in it and improve their living environment bit by bit. Are they all gone? A survivor secretly lay at the door. Looking at the last building robot with a gun, he disappeared deep into the dark corridor outside. Don't know what you're thinking. Leaving. How is that possible? Chen Yan curled his lips and looked down at the thief-headed survivor with his eyes. Our boss will be replaced by them in the future. If you dare to commit a crime, be careful to be pulled out to shoot a target. Don't scare people. The survivor shrank his neck in disappointment and muttered in discontent. Okay, don't fight. Don't think they're really leaving. In the subsequent rescue, a new microphone tool named by Suwu stood up. He pointed to the Bluetooth headset on his ear. Don't forget the monitoring and sensors we installed, as well as the phones in your hands, the positioning bracelets. The boss has been staring at this place all the time, but there is no saying to leave. Now everyone is ready to go and work. A new task was sent. Whether you want to, or not. These survivors with different hearts can only accept the reality that they are about to usher in a new ruler. Perhaps the only thing to be thankful is that there is only one such ruler. And it doesn't seem to require the management team to assist. He will treat everyone fairly and will not be biased towards any party who has made mistakes. The rescue of the Lime Refuge was ended. The convoy continued to sail towards two other shelters in critical condition. Those two refuges. A medium-sized refuge too. The other is a small shelter with a population of about 600. And perhaps it was because Suwu came later. Their situation. It's much more serious than the Lime Refuge. There is a medium-sized shelter. The entire refuge was torn into two by external forces. Half of them were pulled into the depths of the ground and completely lost track. The other half was completely thrown from the ground to the ground, turning into a pile of ruins. In the face of such a tragic situation, there is basically no need to hope for how many living people can be. After a simple search and rescue, Suwu finally only caught 200 or 300 survivors. But there is a little good news. Among the ruins of that shelter, two relatively well-preserved modified trucks were unexpectedly also present. After emergency repair by the engineering robot, it can still drive normally on the road. With the help of these two modified trucks, Suwu's own large truck. Suwu simply took this group of small survivors directly to Qingning Shelter for unified resettlement. As for the small shelter, their shelter body is well preserved. No mistakes, one song, one content, 1 in 6, one book, one bar, one reading. But unfortunately in the earthquake, the warehouse where they store gasoline and diesel, a fire broke out. It burned many places inside the shelter to pieces. Almost the same as a piece of white ground. Not to mention repair, even the most basic living equipment and food are not left. Relying on themselves alone basically has no way to survive. Looking at those survivors with hope. The only thing Suwu could do was to send them to the Qingling Sanctuary. And so, the total population of Qingnian Shelter has increased from more than 1,800 to about 2,500. The pressure to survive in the future becomes even heavier. Suwu sighed. After transferring the population of the two shelters, he did not abandon it directly. Instead, we continued to command the rescue convoy to conduct in-depth excavation of the medium-sized shelter. I have tasted the sweetness of the huge resources reserved by the Lime Shelter. Suwu now looks at medium-sized shelters. It's like looking at mines full of resources. As long as you have the chance. No matter what is inside, you must wave the shovel a few times first, and then take a look. But this time, the result is destined to disappoint him. In addition to the two modified trucks found before. In the ruins of half a medium-sized shelter, the most valuable thing is just some crushed household appliances. These things are easily available in the ruins of Zhonghe City. But just take a little time and look for it patiently. You can also get as much as you want. This shelter is too poor. Although we know that the most valuable generators, central air conditioners, fuel warehouses, etc. are likely to sink into the depths of the ground with the other half of the shelter buildings. But Suwu still couldn't help but want to complain. The greater the so-called expectation, the greater the disappointment. Probably this is what it means. Give up and continue to dig up garbage in medium-sized shelters. Su Wu turned to command the convoy and continued to go straight to the small shelter next door that was no longer human. This small refuge, although it was said that it was burned by a fire. However, due to the solid construction materials used at the beginning, the overall structure is still quite durable. Su Wu planned to make some transformation of it. Arranged as a sub-base of unmanned whistle tower. In the future, garbage picked up from the urban area and more dangerous chemical products can be thrown there to store. In addition, because it is from Su Wu's refuge, the straight line distance has exceeded 10 kilometers. It's just right for drilling wells. 2 new geothermal generators were installed. Chapter 100 System Update. And just as the rescue convoy was renovating the Sentry Tower base, 3 hours passed quietly after the earthquake ended. Su Wu's apocalypse system has been updated and has begun to refresh a bunch of brand new content. Understanding Survival System 1.0 version updated. Close black lens bracket. New features, natural disasters are in parallel. Close black lens bracket. Genuine disaster parallel. When you are within the impact of natural disasters, you will continue to obtain additional survival point income based on the daily fixed survival point income. The additional magnification will change in real time, which is related to its own safety factor, environmental hazard level, distance from the core area of the natural disaster, strength of the natural disaster, etc. Current magnification, 0.02, 0.08 survival points per hour. Close black lens bracket. Added main line and daily task panel. Close black lens bracket. Current main task. The lingering sound of the prosperous era completed. Current daily task. Invite a member to join the shelter forever, and the task rewards 5 survival points 1/5. The panel has undergone considerable changes in the new version of the Apocalypse survival system. And intuitively, the new features of natural disaster parallelism are obviously the most important change. It is equivalent to giving Su Wu a direct access to income channels that continue to gain additional survival points. And the income is quite considerable. Even Su Wu is now in the second underground control center of his own shelter. In theory, it is one of the safest places within the Zhonghe city. He also received an additional income of 0.02 times, which is 1.92 survival points a day. If you try to meet the conditions for improving the extra plurality on this basis, the survival point may also achieve a jumping growth. If it's time for an earthquake, it's good that it's going to have this characteristic. The extra plural is definitely very high. Su Wu felt a little regretful and felt that he had missed the opportunity to make a small profit. And the regret is more than that. He noticed that there is a key factor in the relevant conditions of additional magnification changes, his own safety factor. This means that even if he drives a miniature mecha, he breaks into the central area of the nuclear explosion. It may not be a satisfactory harvest either. However, there are many factors that affect the extra magnification. The operational space inside is still quite huge overall. Go to practice and test it later. Maybe you can still find a way to efficiently brush your survival points. Of course, even if Su Wu doesn't deliberately try to get the extra plural. If you encounter high magnification in the future, it will probably not be missing. After all, follow the prompts when the system is updated. The end of this day has just begun. This is too late. The life on the surface is almost extinct, and the end of the world is beginning. Su Wu felt deeply uneasy about the cruelty hidden behind the system prompts. He began to doubt for the first time. If this continues, he will be the only one left on the entire Earth in the future. It reminds me of the Qingling Sanctuary, which he just acquired as an affiliated stronghold. There are more than 2,000 living lives there. A trace of vague responsibility quietly wrapped around his shoulders. The sky fell, and there was a tall man holding on. But if he is the only taller one. At this time, Su Wu thought of an unknown word mentioned by the Apocalypse system when it settled the rewards every day. Community. In a vaguely, Su Wu seemed to understand the meaning behind it. Added features below. The last 2 changes in the system are the addition of 2 taskbars. 1 main task, 1 daily task. There is no place to operate on the main task. The task it shows is there. Su Wu had only 2 choices to accept or turn a blind eye to him. Daily tasks are relatively complicated. Its refresh time is not fixed once a day. Instead, a new task will be randomly refreshed within 1 to 7 days. if Su Wu did not accept the current daily task. After a random refresh, the current task will disappear and be replaced by a new task. After acceptance, as long as the task itself has no time limit, it will exist until the task is completed or is manually abandoned by Su Wu. And there are up to 5 daily tasks at the same time. None of them are mandatory tasks. Su Wu studied 2 taskbars. I found that even if it is a main task that cannot be operated, as long as he is unwilling to accept it, he can turn a blind eye to it and there will be no punishment. From this perspective, no mistakes, 1 song, 1 content, 1 in 6, 1 book, 1 bar, 1 reading. These tasks are said to be system tasks. In fact, it can also be regarded as simply providing him with a new way to obtain a survival point. The initiative is in his own hands. The rules for system tasks are determined. Su Wu began to look at the real mission content. The lingering sound of the prosperous era of the main mission is shown to be completed. Su Wu directly chose to accept it. Then he found that the reward he received was not a survival point. It is a physical object and a property similar to talent. You have obtained the bio-assisted computer chip set X1, and you can click to collect it. Close black lens bracket. You gain talent, steel will. Close black lens bracket. Iron will. You have the ability to think calmly in a crisis. And even if it is washed away by a long time, it will not lose its original mind. Close black lens bracket. Note: this is a civilization from the past, a gift to you who will become a giant in the future. Close black lens bracket. Su Wu's thoughts moved slightly. In his hand, a box was packaged with unknown materials. There are 11 pieces in the box, with only transparent crystals the size of finger covers. According to the system prompts, these crystals are so-called bio-assisted computer chips. Each chip can be bound to a user. The only one of them, a crystal with a light golden light on the edge, is the main control biological computer chip. After the binding is activated, the highest control permissions on all biological computer chips will be available. At the same time, all biological computer chips can bring their owners the ability to remember everything they want, as well as certain thinking and scientific research capabilities bonuses after binding. This thing is a bit super spec. Looking at the crystals in the box, Su Wu thought carefully for a while, then reached out and took out the golden main control chip. Then follow the instructions to apply to your forehead. A slight stinging pain came. Su Wu's thinking became extremely clear at this moment, as if he had obtained some sublimation. After 10 minutes, this feeling gradually faded. This also means that the biochip has been successfully bound. Su Wu closed his eyes and sensed it. It was found that the operating mode of the biochip was not much different from the tactical computers of the micro-mech. However, one can only be in the cockpit to contact and operate. Another one can be used anytime, anywhere. It's just that you can't communicate remotely with artificial intelligence and electronic devices. You can only ignore distance and space, and send some simple instructions to other biochips. For example, self-destruct. Thank you for watching. Continue exploring the fascinating world of Chinese novels with us. Hit that subscribe button on Chinese Novel Audiobook to stay updated with our latest stories, and never miss out on a great listen.